Okay, so we are live at the moment. Welcome everybody. Hope you are well. Sorry, I'm delayed. Being daddy is a big deal. My little boy was all over me this morning. He needed this, he needed that. Before I knew it, time had slipped through my fingers like water. Anyway, so here I am. I am here. Here is the one that I am. I am the one that is here. Shinobi will be with us in seconds, I hope. Just let me make sure he's got the link. He's got the link. He's got the link. He's got the link. Sorry, I know it's old school Roxette throwback. Gosh, it takes me right back to when I was really young. Used to hear that everywhere when we went to these school discos, school parties. Hey, how you guys doing? We've got in the house. We've got Tom Roo. We've got, let me make my screen better. Oh no, really? Oh, StreamYard, you're doing this to me. Okay. StreamYard is really doing this to me. They are really doing this to me. Okay. Whatever if you have your Google shrunk down to like 50, 60%, when you start your StreamYard, then it messes up your whole live show. So now you've got to like squint at the comments that are like tiny little stick words. How you guys doing? We've got Tom Roo, we've got Systematic. I hope you guys are having a good day. I hope you guys are thriving. I hope everybody's happy, swell, and arriving. We got a cool little conversation today. It was the inspiration of Shinobi. Just let me give him a quick, hey, brother, we are live. Okay, he's here. There we go. Big love, brother. Sorry for the delay. My little boy was all over me for guacamole. Oh, my gosh. And they were ripe avos. So I was like, okay, I'll make you some. And then he was like, no, but this, no, but that, no, but this, no, but that. Before I know it, it's like, oh, my gosh. No, but this, no, but that. This is taking 25 minutes. I had myself one as well. Couldn't resist. Good old guacamole. How are you doing, dear brother?
Yeah, I'm really good, mate. Just sharing this to my YouTube. One sec. But yeah, doing good. Doing well. Orion has got his 1666. What was it? Like London. What's it called as? Great Fire of London thing at school today. So they're all dressed up as like kids from 1666, which is quite funny. Just a weird little ritual they're doing. Because it's like, I get it's fun to dress up and I get it's fun to learn about history, but there's so much interesting stuff kids could be learning. Why are they learning about a fire that happened a few hundred years ago? But anyway, it is what it is. I'm sure he'll have fun.
You know. So the rebuilding and esoteric design. Following the devastation, architects like Sir Christopher Wren and Nicholas Hawksmoor were commissioned to rebuild London's churches. Did you find that interesting? So what I think this can be quite useful for your boy is to let him know that those so-called churches that were built in 1666 are actually older than 1666.
Right, okay.
They were rebuilt. In other words, they had a little bit of repair work done, right? But the foundational church would have stood there before. So we're talking about these churches, and it shouts to me of Tartaria. It shouts to me of all the old world technology and those buildings that we're looking at. I don't think they're just a few hundred years old. They're made out of stone, right? Those cathedrals and those old churches. Stone lasts forever. If you build a stone building, it can last for like 500, 600, 700 years, right? I mean, look at the pyramids.
Yeah, I think some of them are made of granite, I believe.
Exactly. Granite has got like a shelf life.
Yeah, so with granite and fast flowing water, as it creates an electrical current. So these churches weren't built by Christians, I don't think. I believe in my heart they weren't built by Christians. They were built by Gnostics. They were built by people who are more connected to the earth and nature. and then they were repurposed by Christians, I believe, because these cathedrals, all of them have fast flowing water underneath. They have they're obviously huge buildings that look like an arc, and underneath the cathedral there's just as much space. There's always depths, like in the Great Pyramid. They found huge like what's it called, like I can't remember the terminology, but under the Great Pyramids, there's huge like depths. It goes deep under the pyramid. Like there's always more to things. And with cathedrals, there's just as much space underneath them. And there would be fast flowing water. And then that would interact with the granite structure, creating electrical current. And then there's obviously organs, which are to heal the body, the stained glass windows, which would create healing light. Like they're places of healing, and something on our timeline has happened. Perhaps it was around 1666, but that year was when they came up with the birth certificate, which is interesting. So I wonder if they're teaching them about that at school. I doubt it.
Well, there was a huge esoteric remodeling that happened, according to what we're told. So that's quite interesting, you know. And I think there was more esoteric knowledge, and they downscaled the esoteric knowledge. Said that there was the huge fire. It was supposed to be a big fire, wasn't it?
Yeah, it started with the bakery, apparently. Somebody burnt their bread or didn't clean the oven. So, yeah.
Whenever you have these big fires in history, you usually have information being hidden, because you'll find that the buildings usually most hard hit are the buildings that hold all the records, like the architectural records of when buildings were built, or who built the buildings, or why the buildings are built the way they are. What's the architectural design? Why did the architects design? I'm sure this would all be in the records, but if those record buildings all just happened to burn in a great fire, then that fire might have just coincidentally been in a part of London where most of London's important records were kept, so that they could rewrite history. And you'll probably find that the same thing's going to be in every city around the world.
Well, what's interesting as well is that 1666 equals the number 1, like sort of a reset. And today is the number 1 as well. So it's the 24th of the 3rd, 2026, which equals a 1 also. So I just find that a little interesting coincidence. Obviously, it's probably not the same every year, and it's not just this year they're learning about it. They learn about it every year, apparently. But I do find it quite interesting that what they do in school is they build little models, and then they like pretend that they're on fire, and then they put them out, and they use buckets and stuff like that. Is like, just why do they need to know this? Why do they need to learn this? I'd understand if they were like kept them up to date with technology and taught them about fires and how to be careful, and if there's a fire, this is what you should do and stuff like that. But it's just filling their head with yet more useless information. And I get they'll have fun, but they could have fun learning about other things. They could have fun learning about nature, learning about themselves, the mineral, the plant kingdom, dressing up as animals, nutrition, exactly. But this is what schools seem to neglect, is basically fresh air. The windows are closed quite often. Light, water, and movement. That's what all life needs. And then after that,
and food.
Yeah, nutrition.
They serve them Coca-Cola in the tuck shop.
Not at my boys' school, but they used to.
Don't they?
They used to in my school. We used to have.
If not Coca-Cola, they'll have something else.
Well,
they'll have something in there.
When I was in secondary school, when I was about 12 or 13, I used to have a double chocolate donut with chocolate oozing in the middle, turkey Twizzlers. Now, if they're actually turkey or not, that's another question, but they tasted good. And a can of Coke, and that would have been lunch. And because of Jamie Oliver, they've stopped selling Coke in schools and stuff, which is good, I guess, you know. But Yeah.
It's about bloody time, because that stuff's got a lot of caffeine in it. Man, that's like serious caffeine hit. If you're a little kid and you drink that much caffeine, you are going to be diagnosed with ADHD. It's just how it works. Like, that child can't sit down. Of course he can't, man. He's had like the equivalent of like 5 cups of coffee. That little body, that amount of caffeine and sugar. If you were an adult and you scaled up your mass, that little 25 kilogram body, your 75, 80 kilogram body, you'd have to have like 3-4 times the amount. So if he had like 2 cups of coffee's worth of caffeine, you'd have to have like 6 to 8 cups of coffee. Like, it's, you can rationalize it. It is a big deal. I'm glad they don't sell Coke. They shouldn't sell Coke anyway, to be honest. So we've got quite a cool little discussion on today. It was Shinobi that said, like, let's talk about Project Pegasus. And I was like, ooh, yay, time travel, gifted children. And then I was like, oh, which Pegasus is he talking about? Because I know that Pegasus is the big thing in the UK at the moment. And then I was like, I wonder how many Pegasus things, because the Pegasus thing that I'd heard about was the pandemic readiness plan, right? That's the one that gets internationally. But then I went and looked, and I was like, holy crapsies. This is not funniesies. This is like seriously bizarros. So I thought, like, it's bizarros enough. So let's crank it out there. Let's crank it, baby. Let's crank it like we want to prank it. So in order to get the prank cranking, I figured let's get it up here. So let's take a look at this Project Pegasus for a moment. And let's get the screen text at a better level. There we go. So what do we got here? What do we got? We got, in the UK, Project Pegasus currently refers to 2 distinct initiatives. I actually came across 4. Now that I Google it, says 4. So we've got the Aviation Security Active, which is an intelligence sharing initiative by the Metropolitan Police to detect smuggling and terrorism. It's got to do with airplanes. It's got to do with trafficking of counterfeit, substances, narcotics, children, illegal aliens. Sting was definitely in on this. Then we've got the well-known one, the Pandemic Preparedness Exercise Pegasus, which is a national simulation that's been running since last year, right? Now there's another Pegasus one, and let me drag it out. I found it last night and I screenshotted it because I noticed that Google doesn't want you to know all of the information. I was like, that's rather dementedly interesting, in a really demented kind of way. So I figured, like, let's do this. Let's get in under the Dimension project and take a look and see just how deep this rabbit hole goes. So there's another Pegasus, which is also quite important. So we've got these 2, right? We've got the organized crime, which is to do with monitoring all the microlights, all the aircrafts. And what they want is they want everybody to report. They want everybody who works in aviation, who works on the tarmac, who works servicing, cleaners. They want them to report anybody that behaves in any way slightly suspicious, which is like a serious way to promote paranoia wholesale, as you know, because they did that with the Muslim people in the UK a while ago, didn't they? And so if a brown-skinned person sat down with a bag, everybody started squirming, like, I wonder if he's got one of those things that goes boom in that bag. And, they know how to trigger people's fear, don't they? So apart from this simulation, right, which is to do with infectious diseases, preparing us for the next bout of insanity, right, that they had us rolling on. Then we've also got, and here we go, I am going to share it. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? Here it comes. So we have the Pegasus report. Now this is an interesting one. So this is a notion that's done by the police, right? And oh no. this is not the one that's done by the police. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Did I not save these last night? It seems I didn't save them. Donatello. Well, okay. There is one that has got to do with Pegasus Police Initiative. Pegasus Police Initiative, crime prevention. Why am I using this keyboard? I need to get my other keyboard. These gray letters, very hard to see at this angle. So here we go. Project Pegasus. Now, this is a Metropolitan Police Initiative, right? Which is, border crime. It's got to do with basically getting everybody. No, this is the one of the light aircraft. There is another one, though. There is another one. There is another Pegasus initiative that relates to crime on the streets, right? I saw it written up. Can't find it right now. There was another Pegasus initiative that relates to like keeping track of crime and having people report on suspicious activities so that they can basically turn every human being into a police person, which is like, think about how crazy that's 1984 George Orwell all over again. Then there's also Pegasus, the hacking software. Have you heard much about that?
Yes, there's one called Pegasus and there's one called Chrysor. Both were birthed from the neck of Medusa, the two twins.
There we go. And this is a silent hack that can come to your phone as a missed call. You don't even have to click. And it basically turns your phone into an espionage tool. And it's not normally going to be used for like the man on the street. But if you're an activist or a journalist or a problematic individual in any way to the state, bang, they can hit you with Pegasus. You won't know you've been hacked. All you need is a missed call. The missed call doesn't even need to ring. They can call your phone and just before it rings, turn it off and then immediately delete the call. So you don't get notifications that you had a missed call. You can't see it. Then they can installs automatically in the back of your phone. It doesn't take up any memory. It hides itself. And then it turns your camera, your mic, your location, all of your apps, everything into espionage tool for whoever is using it. It's manufactured and maintained by Israeli companies, of course, by the Zionists. We know what the Zionists are up to, like world domination. It's not about Judaism. It's not about religion. It's nothing to do with that. It's basically a financial organization, Zionism. And they want control of the world's economy and control of all the people because that's their jig. It goes right back to before Zionism. Zionism was heavily shaped by Frankism. And Frankism was a rebrand of Sabbataiism. And Sabbatai was a crazy guy who was excommunicated by all of the Jewish rabbi, because they said that he was basically he was like the beast incarnate, according to them. This is me paraphrasing, and they would have nothing to do with a man like that being at all related to Judaism. So Judaism outright rejected this, and this part of this reason he was rejected was because part of his philosophy is to invade other religions. So the first religion they were supposed to invade was Judaism, to hide in Judaism, and then hide in Christianity, and then hide in the Muslim religion, and then hide in government offices, and then hide in the financial district, and then hide in super corporate structures, and hide in the education system, and gain footholds in the Masonic tradition everywhere, so that they could basically manifest their dream of a one world government, super controlled by them. At that time, the Sabbataians, they got found out. People started to see them for what they were. They had to rebrand. And part of the philosophy is to rebrand yourself periodically so that you can stay in the shadows. So they rebranded to Frankism. Frankism operated in the shadows for a while until they got ousted. Then suddenly Frankism vanished and Zionism appeared. Now, the AI and Google is so controlled that they tell us that Zionism is not Frankism. But it's very heavily affected by Frankism and holds many of the same views. But it's not Frankism, right? It wasn't the rebrand. We're supposed to believe that Frankism just vanished. And Zionism is a completely separate thing, just happens to be following a lot of the ideals that was presented by Frankism. And they are using a religion as their front face, but that's what they use as a face. As their tools, they use the banks and the politicians of the world and all the other organizations. This is why you'll hear so many people speaking about how Mossad is connected to the US, is connected to political structures, is connected to the banking industry. So much money is so powerful because this is the arm of Zionism that flexes the muscle to contort the world into their sort of vision. And so it stands to reason that we can see this sort of relation here. Hence, Pegasus comes from there. Now, you mentioned the other software and the two twins. I think that's interesting. What are your thoughts?
Well, I just want to take a step back when you're talking about the hacking. Well, it's not really, because you've just got to that point. But with regards to hacking, Pegasus scenario started on 16th of July 2025, which is a 7/7, 16th of July. And there was an emergency alert here in the UK, which went off on the 7th of September, which is another 7/7. So as above, so below. And the Pegasus constellation is visible in the sky in the Northern Hemisphere between September. Oh no, sorry, when is it? July, I believe. I think it's July and January. So while this whole exercise Pegasus was going on, the constellation would be visible in the sky, which is interesting. And it's funny you mentioned hacking, because I wondered why we were having that emergency alert on everyone's phone in the UK. I had my phone off, but I did hear it go off on other people's phones. It's not the first time it happened. I think last year or a couple of years ago, there was a similar alert. And basically this emergency alert is for extreme weather or terrorism and such. But perhaps the emergency alert was actually just to see whose phones they were able to access at that time. Because this Pegasus scenario, at its core, at the essence, I found that first off, a horse is a structure or a vessel. That's what a horse is. It's a carrier. So it's a structure. So the four horsemen of the apocalypse is just the different structures, different ways to bring in a one world government. We're told it's the end times, but it's the end of one timeline, beginning of another. So Pegasus is a kind of mercurial figure. One that can travel between planet Olympus, the realm of the gods, and the earth. So Pegasus represents freedom. So this whole exercise Pegasus and everything to do with Pegasus, the other things you mentioned, is about how they can take away our freedoms, but under the guise of our freedom is under attack, like terrorism, like a virus, like cyber crimes, because they've recently been saying in the papers that Iran is planning a cyber attack on the UK. Now, I don't think Iran would have access to our technology. It's most likely, as you say, Mossad would. Maybe they would, but it's clear that there's going to be some kind of false flag to do with Iran, because they want us to use this energy of Mars, this energy of Aries that we're in now, to sort of push forward this this fire horse energy, this energy of war. So we have Pegasus, which is the white horse, which would be the first horse, which started last year. We're now in its fourth phase, which is called recovery. And I'll talk more about what that's about. but it actually started, it was called Exercise Solaris and started in May last year. And apparently the findings of this scenario were very concerning, that we were really underprepared for any kind of new novel virus, which interestingly enough is called Disease X. Now, Disease X, remember we're in 2026, which is either a 10 or a 1, depending how you look at it. And the Roman numeral for that is X. And then what's Elon Musk's company is called? SpaceX. You know, there's lots of X. Twitter was changed to X. So with this Exercise Pegasus and Exercise Solaris, there's a link between Nipah virus, and in America there was it was last year, I believe, a similar scenario, but it was called National Blueprint for Biodefense. Now, I've heard Wayne McCroy from the Alchemical Tech Revolution podcast talking about this Nipah virus, and he was reading it out a few months ago, and I was thinking, okay, this sounds very similar to Exercise Pegasus. It's basically the same. The UK or England, especially the city of London, where there's lots of Pegasus symbolism everywhere. The city of London, Washington, DC, where this National Blueprint for Biodefense was a training exercise where it was rolled out, and the Vatican are 3 links of all of the same, I'll call it, entity. So I do want to go deeper into Exercise Pegasus a little bit later and link it with Nipah virus, which comes from a bat to a human. We've heard this story before. All the symptoms of meningitis are the same of this Nipah virus and stuff. So I just want to tie in lots of threads for people, because I've seen lots of people sharing information about Exercise Pegasus online, and lots of people kind of sharing the same things. So I'll get a bit deeper into that later. But Franklin, you mentioned with Pegasus, and does it relate to like extrasensory perception, or you listed some things earlier, because it represents freedoms, Mercury, messenger of the gods. Like perhaps if that is correct, that it's not just this operation. We can see the mechanics. We'll talk about the mechanics of this false matrix and how they're using these 4 horses or 4 horsemen to hold on to power in this time of transition. We can talk about that, but perhaps this goes much deeper. It's to do with our how we communicate with God or Source, how we communicate with our ancestors, our inner and outer dimensions, as above, so below. They're using this energy. And what's interesting is that Pegasus and his twin, Chrysor, which was a boar, which is what Minecraft Malgosha was based on, they were birthed from Medusa's neck when Perseus cut Medusa's head off. So Pegasus was birthed from Medusa's neck. Okay, in September, which was when this operation started, when Pegasus is visible in the sky, that's when the Charlie Kirk assassination was. And he was wearing a T-shirt, which was white, which said freedom on it, because that's representative of Pegasus. There was 33 everywhere. That's the digamma. Di means to change. Gamma is Christ consciousness. Whenever you see 33, the digamma, that means that they're altering our perception. They're grabbing our attention, changing our perception, and therefore altering our conscious awareness. And the only thing I've found with 33 regarding Exercise Pegasus is that it costs £303 to get vaccinated privately against meningitis, which is what the whole operation was about. The same symptoms of which meningitis, swelling of the brain, rash, fever, is the same as a Nipah virus, which this National Blueprint of Biodefense in America was about. And in the beginning of the year, in January, there were 2 cases in India. So I heard that and I was like, oh, okay, they're going to try and push Nipah virus now. Comes from a bat to a human. It's all to do with ultrasound, which we'll get into later. But I'm not going to ramble too much about that now. But I'm excited to share all this information because there's so many threads that connect together. And you've mentioned another one, which is to do with extrasensory perception. And really, this is what it's all about.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. You see, when you mention Pegasus, it hits memories in me. Like, I can't remember. It could have been Project Camelot may have covered it about 15, 20 years ago. I think the Basis projects may have covered it as well. That would have been like 2011, 12. And other people have covered it too. I forget the guy's name, man. There was a guy who had done some really great research and a lot of good sharing, like in the early thousands. DeFagio, what's his name? Maybe I'll find it during this. Namaste. We got Hollow Bone. Hello, dear Hollows. I hope you're well, sweetheart. I hope you're having a good morning. We've got the Star. I hope you're good, Star. I hope everybody's thriving. And Tom's here, and everybody else that's in the chat. Big love to all of you. So yeah, ESP. So the Pegasus originally, before all of these newer additions, or before they've used that word, that name has been used by the state in so many ways. It's very telling. It's Zeus all over again, right? And Zeus is the lightning bolt. In fact, Pegasus, I think, used to carry Zeus's lightning bolts for him. So when he needed a lightning bolt, he'd reach down into his he's had like a special pouch on Pegasus, and he'd pull out his lightning bolts and he'd hurl them down to earth. So it's quite a powerful symbolic sort of relation into the mental power reaching into the physical plane. And also Pegasus represents also that agent which could carry Zeus between heaven and earth. So it has to do with touching the spirit, touching the soul. So the original Pegasus story, which was a Project Pegasus, I think that Project Pegasus was from like the 70s and the 80s. Well, that's when it became, that was where there was a lot of evidence for it. It was primarily done on children. And they were trying to develop the ESP powers and potential in children. So when you hear stories about like the men, what is it? Men who eat with goats, sleep with goats, sweat. What was it?
The men who stare at goats.
Yes, the men who stare at goats. That would be an offshoot of Pegasus programs, just to give you an idea. Because they were developing and they noticed children had the most ESP. So they would try and find ESP bloodlines and get hold of the babies and then mess with the babies and develop super soldiers. And a part of the mission was, from what I've heard, it goes to as far as time travel and bridging gaps between other worlds. So we're talking Stranger Things here, man.
Yeah, that came up in my notes. And also regarding time travel, Trump's grandfather, I believe, had Tesla's notes. So there's a link here between Trump and this whole disease X and Elon Musk and Tesla. There's lots of threads which need to be connected here. But yeah, the reason Stranger Things came up in my notes, I believe, is because, so in my mind's eye, I remember I showed you, because I'm not sure if you've seen it, but they so first off, Vecna, the one who appears to children and basically takes the children, is an anagram of Vance. So that had me thinking J.D. Vance. And who put J.D. Vance in power? Peter Thiel, anagram of reptile. And he's openly said that he takes adrenochrome. So there's a link there between the children, this reptile called Peter Thiel, who's funding J.D. Vance. And what I've thought is going to happen is that Trump will be assassinated while we're in the age of, while we're in Aries, while we're in like March, beginning of April. And then that would be a false flag. They'll be like, it was Iran. And then Vance will be put into power, and then we'll advance to war, because J.D. Vance signals just advance. But the reason I'm mentioning Vance and Vecna, the anagram, is because in Stranger Things, the realm that Vecna takes kids to looks like Mars. It's like a dry desert. And then there's this spider being where these children are in. And this spider being, which Vecna is helping, is basically is using the children's subconscious to power itself. It's feeding off of it, this spider. And I've heard you mention that spiders like electricity, and there's lots of electricity everywhere in this realm. Not that the thunderbolt of Zeus is bad, not that type of electricity. There's a difference between alternating current and direct current. The electricity we have is harmful, and there's been spider beings spotted by electricity pylons, like they feed on electricity. Well, are they feeding off children's electricity, these spiders? And we have the World Wide Web as well, which I find interesting, which is a tool that's supposed to enslave us, but really, actually, we've managed to use this World Wide Web to connect with each other and stuff. But I just find it very interesting that Vecna and Vance is an anagram of each other, and that this technology is basically just being weaponized against children and feeding off their subconscious, really.
Yeah, I mean that is quite interesting. It does sort of suggest quite a lot of shenanigans, and it is very interesting that they're using this word Pegasus. So we've got Asus, so an oasis, right? Asus. I wonder what is the etymology of the word Asus. Asus. Etymology. Is it an Arabic word? Asis. Because it makes me think about a bird. Asis. Coptic. Is it a Coptic word? Where have I come across that word? Asis.
Well, there's a company in the UK called Asus, ASUS, who make graphics cards. So it's about seeing reality in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a laptop. They also make laptops, right? As far as I know, Asus. But there's an old. I mean, the word ash is a derivative of the word ash, which is a derivative of the word ash, which derivative comes from the roots Phoenician fire. So, ash, us. Burn us, right? Burn us, which is an interesting concept, because what does Zeus do with his lightning bolt? Right? He burns humanity. So there is something there, and Peg, I think relates to Pag. I think it relates to masculine deity, right? Like in some etymological roots. It's been years since that word's come up for me. I should probably go and take a look. But it is interesting that this Pegasus symbol is being so exploited, and that they have loaded so much onto it. So it's obviously an intelligence collection idea, right? Obviously what it is. So when you think about it, the idea of the pandemonium, awareness, readiness, right? Pandemonium is what they're doing. It involves them collecting data and information on people and getting people ready to give information. That's really what it's about, right? So that people are prepared to, like, okay, you're going to need this ID card. You're going to need to get your digital information. You're going to need to put it out there. We're going to need this in order to keep you safe. Then the other one, which has got to do with the police collecting information on people, trying to stop crime in London and in the streets. Then there's the bigger version of that, which relates to the airplanes and the smuggling and the substances and children in airplanes, cargo holds, and everything else, you know, illegals, which is border control, which was also essentially about collecting information. Then you've got the Pegasus, which is relating to the apps, right, that are basically collecting your private information. And then we've got this ESP program, which is teaching children to learn to become psychic spies so they can collect information, even from the future, right? Even from parallel worlds, collecting intel and information of what will happen, what has happened, because they notice that human beings have the potential to project consciousness into the future, right? So it's not easy to do that with technology, but if you find the right human beings and you trigger them in the correct way, you might be able to get them to start that process working, because it is something that happens. It's been happening since the beginning of time. We call it prophecy. It's not something that everybody that it happens to, but it can happen and does happen to some people sometimes when the conditions are correct. And so I guess they've been researching and trying to learn how to make those conditions work for them. Hello, namaste, every day. I hope you're well every day. Hope you're good. Yeah, Tomru, you know, self-control is a big part of the story. It seems like we are in this place, you know, we are in this crazy place, and you know, and you're right, DNA is a big part of it, I think, because they want to collect that information. Project Pegasus, time travel, teleportation, access to past and future events, DARPA. Yeah, exactly. The star, you know, that is a big thing. That's what I recall when you first said it. That's what went through my mind. And then I was, but no, he's probably talking about the thing that they're doing with the pandemics, you know. And then I started thinking, hold on, like I've also heard about Pegasus, like an app. I'm sure I've heard about this. Like, so I had to go and look it up, and I was like, I knew I was right, you know. So they why are they shoving Pegasus in our face? And what is the relation to Zeus? And are we entering into the age of Zeus? Is the age of Pegasus an entry point? So what does Zeus represent, right? Zeus represents lordship, total dominion, and total control, right? Sitting in his domain, disconnected from humanity, in his heaven, right? His Olympus, able to observe and control the influences of men. He has all of his gods that work for him, that go down and lay down the rules and manage humanity the way they want humanity managed. And then he's got this Pegasus horse that can give him access to be able to actually come down and strike with thunderbolts if anyone doesn't behave, right? And generally speaking, when Zeus comes to Earth, he doesn't come to Earth like bearing gifts, like, hey, you guys have been great, look what I brought for you. He comes to Earth bearing thunderbolts, right? So he's like quite wrathful towards humanity very often, you know, very often. So it to me, that's like an interesting concept that they would use as symbolism in the iconography of Zeus, and of course Pegasus. I have a very special connection with Pegasus, and like you were rightfully saying, you know, the relation of the idea of the archetype, the symbolic meaning of Pegasus and freedom. I think it relates to freedom on one level, but I think it also relates to service. Like to serve the divine, to serve the deities, right? Like when Pegasus came down to Earth, there's a myth, there's a story about Pegasus kicking a mountain and making a let me try and find it. Yeah.
Well, while you're finding that, there's a myth of Pegasus and Bellerophon. And Bellerophon captured Pegasus and used a golden a golden bridle or a golden rein to tame him, so that he could fly between Earth and the Mount Olympus. And what's interesting is that St. George rode a white horse. And I've made a video about this before, but the white horse representing freedom or like connection to God or traveling between worlds, that is what's being weaponized, and it's being captured in the guise of it's for your own good kind of thing. Like they use the same patterns, like a patter, like so the pattern is like pitter patter. It comes down like from the sun, like rain, like it's light codes. And then rain, you know, you have reins on a horse, to control a framework, or to control a structure. You have reins, you have patterns which you use, which control a vessel, and we are the vessel, and we're being controlled and bound by patterns. And those patterns are our DNA. They've managed to trick us into repeating cycles, repeating patterns by using these characters from mythology, which is my theology, which is how we understand our psyche. And we've been kind of detached from that. So it's interesting that Bellerophon used Pegasus to slay the Chimera, which was a so-called monster that breathed fire, that had the snake for tail, the head of a lion, and it had a goat on its back or something as well. Well, the image of Bellerophon slaying this so-called demon, which to me is a dragon, because what other animal breathes fire? This is synonymous with St. George slaying the dragon. And the dragon is interesting because with this Nipah virus and this national blueprint for biodefense in America, which interestingly enough was supposed to happen on the 4th of July, 2025, which is Independence Day, which is freedom, which is very interesting. The start of July, like the start of Pegasus scenario, Pegasus being freedom and this being on Independence Day. It's very interesting because with this Nipah virus, apparently the dragon's blood, which is also known as, if I can say the name, sangre de gato, which comes from the tree bark and sap. Its compound or something is SP303, 33, can be used to treat symptoms of Nipah virus, which is very interesting because that's dragon's blood healing this virus. And this Nipah virus is very similar to meningitis, which is what this exercise Pegasus was about. So it seems that this whole Pegasus operation, these operations, is about slaying our dragon, because the way I see it is this dragon archetype guards the gold in the cave, and that cave is our psyche, and the gold is our divine spark or our power, our gold within, but it's being protected. So to get to our gold, they need to slay the dragon. And for me, this exercise Pegasus, this Nipah virus, and the fact that dragon's blood can help heal these ailments from Nipah virus is very, very interesting. It's a very interesting thread there, because this whole St. George slaying the dragon, last year, I can't remember when, but everyone's flying the Red Cross, the symbol of St. George. And it seems like it's kind of a way that they're trying to take away our freedoms under the guise of this Pegasus. Like I've said, it's to do with like a virus, terrorist attack, whether that's cyber attacks. But the thing is, the government had an emergency alert on everyone's phone in the UK. And I 100% believe if that there is a cyber attack. Before it used to be Russia, they were like, oh, Russians gonna cause a cyber attack, but now it's Iran. Why is it Iran? Because America have just attacked Iran, and America's using our RAF bases here to load bombs to bomb Iran. So what they can do is to push this forward is they can do anything. So what I think these scenarios are about at their core, and I'm just going to say this, is I really feel that these scenarios aren't ways, they're ways for them to cover their backs. So first off, they do a scenario to see, oh, what will happen? And then they do it. Like, I'm going to read out a list here. So there was Event 201. If no one knows about that, look it up. You can look it on John Hopkins' website themselves or on YouTube. 4 months before COVID happened, Event 201 was another scenario. There was a knife attack here in the UK from Doncaster train line to London, and this was in March last year, and a few weeks before that happened, the police did a scenario of a knife attack on a train line from Doncaster to London. So that's a coincidence. Like I said, there was Event 201, and then there was COVID, and apparently before 9/11 they did a scenario about that as well, a while before that happened. And then again, now we have Pegasus scenario, or exercise Pegasus, which mentions an meningitis outbreak, and then now there's a meningitis outbreak. So what I think they do with these scenarios is they try and kind of cover their backs, and by that I mean what they'll do is if there is some kind of chemical attack to do with our water, a fog, something to do with air relating to sulfur monoxide or whatever they want to spray in the air. There's been lots of fog here. Lots of people have been getting unwell. So many people are coughing up stuff. I understand people do get sick in March and spring, but it's been amplified. What I think they might do is if something does happen, they'll blame it on a foreign nation. So I've got this in my notes somewhere, but it made so much sense to me that they roll this stuff out. They kind of plan it like it's a scenario, and then they either MK Ultra someone to do this attack, like on this happened between September and January last year as well, when Pegasus constellation was in the sky. And remember, Pegasus was birthed from Medusa's neck. There was the Charlie Kirk so-called assassination, whether that happened or not. Some very weird stuff went on with that, for sure. That's the whole digamma. And then there was also a Ukrainian lady who got knifed in the neck on a train in America around this time. So you have 2 neck fatalities pushed out on social media during this time when Pegasus constellation is visible in the sky. That the guy, I don't want to digress, but the guy who did the attack on the train in America, he was saying that he thought that people were trying to get in his head. He could hear voices in his head. And before I heard that, I was like, this seems like it's MK Ultra. And then I heard that he was mentally unstable, and then that he could hear voices in his head. And I was like, okay. So they run simulations, and then they create the problem, and then they feed off the reaction, and then they cast their net. They cast their brains to try and control the narrative, control the problem that they've caused. But yeah, I digress a little bit, but it made so much sense to me yesterday that with these attacks, these orchestrated like kind of scenarios and stuff, they could so easily be blamed on a foreign nation, like with COVID, and came from a bat to a human, and then, oh no, it didn't. It actually came from a lab. And then it's like, which story do I believe? Then people are divided whether it was this way or that way, and then you have people who aren't sure whether this outbreak is real because it's based on a scenario. There's lots of things out there to try and confuse people. So I hope the way I come across isn't confusing, because there's lots of threads that make sense. They make sense in here, but trying to sort of like relay them is quite difficult, because our mind works faster than we're able, and in different ways than we're able to express with clarity. But what people need to know is that with these psyops, you can say it or spell it PSY, like psi, like psychological operations, or you can spell it PSI, like pounds per square inch, because the pounds per square inch, which is a trident symbol, is used for a wave function, and it's a Greek letter called psi, PSI, like Poseidon's trident or Shiva's trident. And it's to do with water and information and disrupting the wave function. This is what psyops are. They disrupt the wave function, so that it's to do with our currency, our energy, and what we currently see, what we see in the world. It's kind of creating a distortion in the matter so that we can't see with clarity. And this is in the matter, and this is also in our psyche as well. They're trying to like muddy the waters. And this Pegasus scenario, it ties into smart dust and 6G, which I'll mention later, because I don't want to talk for too long. But there's some very, very interesting threads with this new technology. And it seems that 6G was supposed to be rolled out in 2028. I think that they're trying to fast track things like they did with COVID. They seem to do things too quickly. Didn't work. They've tried monkeypox. They've tried Nipah virus. Now they're trying meningitis. They're just trying different things to see what grabs people's attention and what really rolls out the fear, because it's with fear that they can control us, the false evidence appearing real. So, yeah.
You know, it got me thinking what you were talking about, the throat. And I was trying to find, I'm sure I've seen depictions of Pegasus and Venus together. And the only ones that I could find now readily, which aren't so obvious, but I'm sure I've seen more. And for those of you in the chat, I'm sure you guys might be able to even let us know like where to look. But there have definitely been these things, these patterns. And so we can see like depictions of where there's Pegasus and Venus together. And it's like, this does relate fairly prominently to what you're talking about, you know, because Venus, what does Venus rule, right? Venus rules in the body. Venus rules over our ability to be in harmony. And harmony is related to vibration. So it's the third principle of Hermes that we're talking about. And Venus also represents the arches, which represents the gateway into other dimensions. So ESP, Venus. Hence vibration being the key to expanding the consciousness. Once again, expanding the consciousness is very much related to Zeus, because Zeus represents the principle of expansion, expansiveness into the domains of the heavens. So we can see this, like these really interesting parallels here. And when you talk about the throat being sort of depicted in this way, being stabbed and whatnot in the throats, being a repetitive theme, I think that's quite important, because, you know, when we talk about Visuddhi chakra, we talk about the throat center of energy. This is where we purify our consciousness, right? So if you're talking about brainwashing, you're talking about purification of consciousness within the physical domain of the physical body, the brain. And it's also our connection to the Akasha. And our Akasha is a connection to our past and future lives. In fact, it's the field of resonance that is here and active where we are. And it's this field of existence that holds the imprints from time beyond this linear time that we believe we're experiencing here physically. So, there are a lot of interesting connections here. And the fact that the throat's being stabbed sort of suggests that the ability for human beings to shift their consciousness into a divine psychic plane of being where they are able to actually see the mechanics behind the physicalizing objects that we're so used to, that I think scares them. Because with that comes a certain sense of personal responsibility and taking personal ownership of what you're bringing into the world and how you feel about it, not just going, oh, well, you're the state. You do it. How much money is it going to cost? No, we trust you. Take our money. What? You need more taxes? Yeah, take it. Well, I understand. I'm sure that those bombs that you sent to Israel that's going to blow up children in Palestine was necessary because you know better, right? And it's okay. We don't mind that our taxes have paid for it because we understand it's for the greater good, right? Those bad Palestinians. I saw that the homemade hand grenade that they threw at Israel, right? And you're completely right. You need to get out all your big artilleries and launch myriads of cluster bombs at them and just destroy all of their cities now because they messed up someone's doorstep. They can't come around messing up people's doorsteps, So the brainwashing necessary for us to digest this political dichotomy that they are shoveling down our throats and forcing us to sort of live through is quite a lot to swallow. Yeah. And hey, Jamie, how you doing, brother? Hope you're good, man. It's a lot to swallow. It's a lot to digest. And we've also got Zephyr here. Welcome, dear Zephyr. Tom Roo's still rocking it up. The star is still here. Out tuition. Big love. Namaste. The crew is back. Hope you're all doing well. And I hope everybody is thriving. Nobody is driving. It's better to be smiling. Yeah, so, I think there's a lot here to unveil with the symbolism of the Pegasus. And let's take a moment to step out of the logic mind. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? We're stepping out of the logic mind. I've got little Agathan here with you. He's come to say hello. He's like, hello, my name's Agathan, and I'm a cutie. No, you may not play on my keyboard. It has been decided. He wants to get on that keyboard. I'm going to have to put him on the floor if he carries on like this. He's not going to stop because he takes after me. Once he starts, there's no stopping him. He's on a mission now. You're not going to stop him. Let him go and do what he needs to do over there. He can become the dog's problem now. He's the dog's problem. But yeah, the idea of the Pegasus, going into a deep dive shamanic perspective, what does the horse represent? So animals obviously represent patterns and fields of potential that we manifest through this field of consciousness. And the horse obviously represents the ability to move, the ability to travel, the ability to journey. So you can see that Venus, representing the gates between the worlds, has a special relationship with Pegasus when Pegasus is moving between the worlds. He needs to travel through the bridge of Venus, if you will, which in itself shows a very interesting connection. Relates to the chariot on a subjective level, the Merkabic body, even though the Merkabic body is specifically related to the sign of Cancer. There is a relation here. Pegasus did stomp on the ground to make that. Oh, yes, I was going to show you. Let me show you. So I did find it. There we go. I was going to tell you guys about it, and then the topic sort of moved on. So let me tell you before it's, there we go. So here you can see what it is. So this is to do with the Hippocrene spring, or the horse's fountain. and it's a mythical spring, supposedly on Mount Helicon in Greece, which was created by Pegasus to release water. And this is the water that inspires poetic creativity. I think it's got another name. Is it the Spring of the Muse or something? Cold fountain, cold spring, blissful.
So the hippocampus is where our memories are stored, which is, of course, the water horse too. This all ties into memory, and because we have like MEMS, which is smart dust technology, which links to 6G, which links to this exercise Pegasus, and links to Canterbury and Kent also too. It's just interesting they've called smart dust MEMS. Why would they do that? MEMS.
Exactly. And this is what I was getting at here, is that Venus is the muse, the inspiration, harmony, and beauty. It is Venus which rules the arts, right? So when you're connecting the dots between Venus and Pegasus, Venus rules the throat. The throat rules the higher mental faculties, the psychic mental faculties that can have an intuitive release from the center of Zeus's tower, if you will. And like you say, the memory is quite central to how this operates, because this is going deep into the memory. But Venus doesn't just delve into your personal memory. Venus delves into the cosmic memory, which is the Akasha. And the Akasha is the cosmic memory that we can tap into, which is the memory of the future, right? The memory of the past, non-linear memory, and the memory of other worlds and other times and other spaces and other fields of vibration, memory of other people, telepathy. Those are also expressions of the divine memory. For everything is sort of structured out of memory. So like you're very on point. And so it's quite interesting that the throat would be under attack in this way, because the throat is also where we hold our emotions. We think of emotions as being in the heart, but no, that's where we feel our emotions. But where we hold our emotions is our throat. If we become hyper emotional, we're not in a proper place, we're not expressing ourselves healthy, our throats will suffer, right? You get a sore throat, you get like a cold or throat infection when your emotions are attacking your body. It's not your heart that suffers, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that lots of people have had throat issues and sinus issues, like me, quite severely for the last couple of weeks. I woke up in the middle of the night last night, and then I was like, I breathed through my nose, and it's like the first time I could properly breathe in a couple of weeks. And this, like, I've taken screenshots of various different people. Loads and loads of people have all become unwell since we've had this fog in the UK. Lots of people have become unwell who don't usually get sick. Like people have been getting like sinusitis kind of symptoms, like blocked throat, blocked nose, and sinusitis can lead to meningitis, which I find interesting, because people are going to have lots of fear and be like, oh no, I've got a bit of a sore throat, I've got a bit of a fever, maybe I'm going to be getting this. And especially parents with young children, because with COVID, they weren't able to get to children as much as they wanted. It started off with the elderly and then slightly younger people, and they were trying to jab 6-month-old babies. And I think that's when people were actually like, enough is enough. So that's why they're pushing this next round of jibby jabbies, because they want to get to the babies, they want to get to the children, they want to mess up their DNA, they want to mess up their connection, their potential, their core of, you know, who these children can be. They alter their DNA, then they're just gonna become empty vessels. That's the end game. That's what they want to do. And what's interesting with the throat as well, so the throat chakra is blue. This seems to be all part of Project Bluebeam, because what that is the throat connects the heart, the heart's here, the heart and mind. The throat connects that, and then going through that is the vagus nerve. And in Las Vegas, that's where they started using their blue light technology on the screens to pull you in, to draw out your soul, so that you identify with the technology. And they had no windows, got you drunk. It was the mafia and the CIA that started this. This is why we have blue lights on our technology. So you're glued to the screen because blue light pulls. It's magnetism, magnetic blue light. So this vagus nerve here is what they're trying to sever. They're trying to cut the heart-brain connection, because we've been divided on all levels by race, gender, this, that. With Project Bluebeam, it's separating people from God. They did experiments in 2015 via magnetism. They've perfected this via magnets to detach people from source. Dividing the family unit, destroying national identity. This is what cutting the heart and the brain is. It's separating us from ourselves. It's especially with the Charlie Kirk assassination, whether that was real, scripted or not, the symbol is there. Let's just use the symbol. Let's use the narrative. He was speaking what he believed. He was speaking his truth. Whether people disagree with it or not, everyone should be allowed to speak. People can be told that they're wrong, but everyone is entitled to an opinion, whether you disagree with it or not. So he got shot in the neck. That's going to make some people fearful of speaking their truth, because they think, oh, maybe I might get shot or shut down. So we're trying to be shut down on all levels. Like with these other Pegasus operations to do with the police and smuggling and stuff, it's all related to technology, to be able to, I don't mean technology as machines and external. I mean technology is language and symbols. They want to alter our language, the gauge between each others, between higher realms and source. They want to cut that ties. They want to disrupt how we communicate with each other, how we communicate on the internet and stuff. So this whole exercise, Pegasus, and everything that's going on with Project Bluebeam and stuff, which people think is just a fake alien invasion. We've spoken about that before. It's about detaching people from God, dividing. It's about division, basically separation. They want us separated, and it's not just separated from each other, because there's a worldwide energy crisis at the moment. We had the cost of living. Imagine that phrase, the cost of living. It costs nothing to live. It costs nothing. These little spells they cast on us, the cost of living. Oh, how much it costs to live. It costs nothing to heat our houses. They get energy from the ether. We pay for it. Energy prices are going up because of this, because of that, because of things that are orchestrating. We're going to pay for our water, which they get from the earth, pumped full of chemicals. All of this stuff we have to pay for. We're paying with more than just our money. We're paying with our energy and our time. And really what our currency is our connection to source. And that's what we're paying for by being distracted all the time, by having to work jobs 9 to 5, people having to do multiple jobs just to keep up, only for a third or half of it to be taxed. And remember, people, we've got the 1st of April coming up, April Fool's Day. So don't be a fool. Don't pay your taxes. Stop funding war. Stop funding genocide. Stop funding the decimation of our children and of who we are, because we do have power. We're in control. We're the 99%. They're the 1%. We're the 99%. There's more of us than them. We need to stop funding the system, which isn't really a system. It's more of a prison that we're building. In the UK here, Keir Starmer was saying how they need to inject AI into the veins of the UK. Inject AI into the veins of the UK? Okay. I've spoken to a few people about this, and some people have said, oh, all that means is like the infrastructure. Well, what's the infrastructure? It's the waterways. Water is what carries information. So this ties into memory. And these waterways, could it be our literal waterways? I've shared the document of Southern Waters future towards 2050, where they mention graphene oxide and our water, and they mention how everyone and everything will be encoded. Well, with what? Smart dust? Nanotech? And this ties into 6G as well, because with this smart dust and nanotech, which I strongly believe they put in the skies worldwide in January last year, all of these bits that people were finding in this fog, which if you check anywhere online, it will say, oh, it's just particles of salt from the sea and stuff. Well, people were getting respiratory issues afterwards and very unwell, much like this fog we have here in the UK now. And it's actually, this fog's been in Finland, New Zealand as well recently. And you get unwell because your body's rejecting foreign objects. And with this smart dust, it has a shell around it, and this shell gets dissolved or broken by ultrasound. So it can be in your body dormantly. It can be there, but it needs 6G to awaken, if you like. Now, this brings me back to the topic at hand, which is exercise Pegasus, because in Kent, Canterbury, Kent, it started off in club chemistry. The CC is a 33, and Canterbury club chemistry is a 6 if you had the CC and C. Oh no, that's a 9. Forget it. Anyway, it's been exactly 6 years since COVID lockdowns. Yesterday would have been the first one in the UK. The 13th, when there was the first case of meningitis in the UK, would have been when America declared an emergency alert, because the UK and America are interlinked. It seems to be the red and blue and red, flip and reverse it. Whenever we have red here, they have blue over there, blue there, we have red here. They're interconnected, the UK, and of course it goes back to the British Empire as well, and that ties into Israel too. They're all just hands. They're just all puppets of the same hand. This is beyond. It goes beyond nations. It's not Israel. It's not UK. It's not America. It's way beyond that. What's interesting is, in my research I've done the last few days into 6G and smart dust, it's been very difficult to find that at Canterbury University they've been studying 6G. If you search online, it takes a while. It will say Sheffield, it will say Edinburgh, it will say Bristol. All of these universities have been looking into 6G. Well, Canterbury in Kent has stayed under the radar because it's not mentioned in any media. It stayed out of the media. Why has it stayed out of the media? Because what I think has happened is that they've been testing out 6G technology, and it's caused brain inflammation in some people. It's caused high fevers, and it's caused rash, all symptoms of meningitis. And I'll just say quickly, what has happened is that they've heightened the amount of cases. There was only about 34. I'm really surprised it wasn't 33, by the way. A little bit disappointed, but it was 34. And apparently there's not been that many cases. Apparently they're inflated, and it's not spread like they said it would. And I think that it's not spread because people aren't buying into the bullshit, because it's mind over matter. With COVID, it was act like you've got it, because you can have it and not have any symptoms. Just act like you've got it. Okay, if you act like you've got something, you're more likely to have it. It's called the placebo effect. So I don't think this has gone to plan so far, but this isn't the end of their psyop, because I think this links to water, because in Kent in January, they didn't have water for a week because they weren't able to put the correct chemicals in the water. So no one had water for a week, and people were having to boil water. There's this links to water. There's a thread here. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it ties into smart dust. It ties into graphene. It ties into 6G, this ultrasound, which bats communicate via ultrasound, I believe. And this Nipah virus, COVID, came from a bat to a human. And a bat is like a vampire. It only gets in if you let it in. So this fear, this virus, all of this stuff only gets in if you let it in. And I'm talking about all this stuff, not to spread fear. I'm just saying there's all of this stuff going on. Let's look at it so we can kind of have a clearer image. And it might be a bit blurry, but like there's a lot of different threads that if we kind of hold in place over time, we'll see with more clarity. Because I see with clarity in my mind's eye, but it's one thing up here, in here, and it's one thing trying to express this clarity, because I listen to so many different threads of information, different people talking about it, doing research, reading articles and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot going on behind the scenes, a lot of threads tugging at people's subconscious. Like they're trying to make us go a certain way, because this exercise Pegasus, and I'll stop rambling in a sec, but it ties into how they, and also not just exercise Pegasus, it was in America, the biodefense security or whatever. It's about how can they incorporate technology with this and with us. And the lady who owned the club in Kent, she got notified by the government via Instagram that some people from a club had meningitis. So what they're trying to do with all of this is spread fear, make all of this stuff spread, but do it incorrectly, because we've just had the COVID inquiry, and the end of that was that, oh, we didn't lock down fast enough. That was the issue with the COVID rollout. We didn't lock down fast enough. And this all ties to digital ID, and basically everyone should have a digital ID, because therefore if your neighbour's sick, you'll be notified straight away. And how great will that be? And how much freedom will you be able to have by giving us your freedom? Because we'll be able to let you know if your next door neighbour's a terrorist, or if they've got a virus, or if they're sick, you know? So, yeah, big ramble there. I'll pass the mic now.
Yo, Mr. Rasta, welcome. Is it Master Rasta? It's Mr. Rasta. And we got Zara. Welcome to you guys. I hope you guys are all well, thriving. Everybody else that's joined the show, don't forget to smile, share the show, bang some thumbs up, likes wherever you are, whatever platform you're on. Seem to be having an issue. It doesn't seem to be having a problem getting the stream onto LinkedIn. That's interesting to know. Oh, it's there. It's now. Now it's on. Weird. So yeah, you know, I've put it on the screen here. You were talking about it, and so a big part of the Pegasus project, or one of the other Pegasus projects, has got to do with medical research, which is what you've been sort of touching onto. And it's very interesting that this one is from the this is the City of St. George's, University of London, and reducing the risk of cardiovascular disease in people with severe mental illness. Co-production, feasibility testing, and trial of a peer-supported group clinic intervention. I find it interesting that they're focusing on people with mental illness, to be honest with you, just within that particular research paradigm. And here we go. This is the NHS. What is the NHS saying? So, oh gosh, they've hidden that from me. They've also got a Pegasus write-up somewhere, but when you click on it, now they don't want to show me. They showed it to me before. Very weird. I'll have to go and take a look what's going on there. Then you've also got Birmingham. Let me get that back. I accidentally closed it. So you got Birmingham as well, and they've got, you know, they're running research programs in Birmingham as well, which, you know, none of this is going to be a big surprise to us. So there we go. That should pop up onto the screen in a second. Is it popping up? No, there it is. So we've got the Birmingham story going on here, right? So that's hypertrophic scarring. So this has got to do with fire burns. So there's Pegasus research to do with hypertrophic. Now the skin, for those of you that aren't so fully aware, the skin has got a very particularly and profound relation to the gut. Obviously, it's squamous epithelial tissue. It's all the same grade of tissue. Frequency and vibrationally, it's the same organ on your body, your gut and your skin. And you might notice that people that suffer from eczema, I was talking to my girlfriend about this just like in the last couple of days. We have a lot of these conversations. She's a kinesiologist and she also does energy work, so therapy. So we often have these kind of conversations because both our careers are like picked into this, and it's close to our hearts. It's what we do, what we research. And so this relationship between the gut and the brain and the skin, eczema has got a lot to do with our mental state. People that are suffering from eczema often have a certain kind of a mental irritation, and usually that kind of flustered mental state brings about a reaction in the gut because they work in tandem, which changes biochemical signaling. You are starting to be cheeky little buggy. You cannot go and bite my keyboard. No, you may not. Go sit over there. Go sit over there. Come on. Aye. So I'm just going to keep him up here. That'll keep him out of trouble.
Franklin, can I share a link so a friend can join our chat? Because she's been sending me some very interesting stuff via WhatsApp. And I said, why don't you join us today or another time? And she said, yeah, she's happy to.
You know her, yeah?
Yeah. She's local.
Bring her in.
Yeah, I'll send her a link. Yeah.
Sweet brother. The same link that I sent you would work. So yeah, you know, this whole story of the skin being related to the brain, being related to your emotional state, being related to your gut. You can see there's a parallel here of what they're researching if you understand the occult cosmology behind how the body works and the esoteric side of things, which has got to do with scarring, which is obviously going to attract a lot of people because, you know, a lot of people that have scarring tissue, they're going to want to be able to figure out how this works. Now, I'm guessing it's a kind of a genetic treatment, right? To prevent scarring. I mean, what kind of treatment do you think they'd be using? They'd obviously be somehow affecting your genetics. So in order for the genetics to go back to the pre-scarring memory codes, right? So I don't know. I find it really interesting. There's so much of this information out there. And then again, of course, there is at the NCBI, right, the National Library of Medicine, pressure garment to prevent abnormal scarring after burn tissues. These are special kinds of plasters that have been developed as well. Also, interestingly enough, called Pegasus. And this study was done in 2 phases, right? The first phase was basically getting a working group together in people's public. The second phase was clinical trials, right? And getting the consultants and the nurses and the physiotherapists and the occupational therapists and everybody together so that they could get them all to sort of work together and test these new products, and then to sort of report back on how everybody felt about it. And, you know, the usual. But anyway, it's just interesting to see just how much medical research, and that's just the UK, all happening under the label Pegasus. And a lot of it's got to do with psychological diseases. It's got to do with how they relate to your breathing, right? And your circulation and your heart, because your breathing and your heart's very much connected. Now, you tell me how meningitis affects your heart, right? And I bet it's going to be rather interesting because there's only one way to do it, you know. Let's go. I bet it's got to do with the heart rhythms, right? Um, whoops.
I didn't notice you were gone then, because I had another tab open and it was silent for a moment. So I was like, oh, I better check.
Yeah, I accidentally navigated the wrong tab to heart timing, and I'm betting it's going to have a huge relation here. Let me open up the tab and see what they're saying. Oh, of course, I lost my tab when I accidentally jumped ship from the room. Sorry about that, beeps. I thought I was typing in the other tab. But here we get an idea of sort of what we're talking about, you know. So it's caused by the Neisseria meningitis. It's closely linked to cardiac complications that can arise rapidly, right? These heart-related issues can occur at the same time as meningitis symptoms during the early phase of hospitalization, right? So now we go back to this, right? Skin burns and how that relates to your nervous system, right? And then we take a step back to reducing the risk of cardiovascular disease in people with severe mental illness. Can you see how these things are all connected? There's a connection between the rhythm of your heart and getting meningitis, and psychological issues, because when your heart rhythm gets changed, your hormonal systems go out of whack and your emotional systems go out of whack. So you could find that people that are going to get meningitis might get a psychological reaction before they get the physical reaction of meningitis. And people with psychological issues might be more prone to suffer meningitis reactions because their heart rhythms may not be as stable. Because I've always been considered like, by most people that have known me, as being like the most emotionally solid and stable person. And it's why it's why the people that brought the psychedelics into South Africa like decades ago wanted me to test the psychedelics before they would buy them, right? Because I would take a vast quantity of psychedelics but still stay rational and still able to have like a normal conversation about the exact nature of this particular psychedelic, how it affects the brain, and how safe it is to release it into the public domain. You know, are you going to have a lot of naked Jesus on the mountain and too many cop reports, or is it going to stay low key? And so very often, you know, if I said like this was God consciousness, then they'd get like a bit of it for the families, and they just give it to the people that were like, you know, in the proverbial family network. But and that was because I would always stay stable even if I was on a lot of psychs, and my heart rate is always pretty much 60 my whole life. My heart rate doesn't change, it stays stable. Like obviously if you're running or if you're active, it's different, but I mean my normal heart rate is the same every day, every week, every month, every year. It doesn't change very much. As I get older, I suppose it's maybe getting slightly quicker, but it hasn't changed that much since the last 30 years. So your heart rate is connected to your emotional, mental equilibrium and how psychologically stable you are and how much stress you can handle before you crack. Some people can handle an extremely large amount of emotional and mental crap, and they can just go and sit down and go, you know, what the WTF? It is what it is. Let's roll with it. Some people adapt and roll with the punches. Other people don't. Your physical reflexes are related to how stable your heart is. If you're a phenomenal fighter because your reflexes are fast and you can think on another level than another person, it's because your heart's more stable than their heart. So when they come at you, you don't go, You're stable, you're calm, you sidestep, you move, you flow with them. You're still present and you're still conscious of the experience, even though it represents danger. It's why I've been able to stand and like have charging bulls coming at me and just not flinch and just look them in the eye and stay calm. That heart rate is the key. So they're looking for people that have heart rate issues. They're looking for people because they know there's a connection between your heart rate and your psychological state, your emotional stability, your hormonal state. and that opens you up to the potential of meningitis. So not everybody would get meningitis. You see, you can sort of, there's a predictive curve to this, which is quite interesting, that we're not aware of because our medical systems have sort of hoodwinked us. Have we got a lady in the house?
Well, can I just say quickly that what's interesting is that before, so my heart was fluttering in bed just before I got what's this nasal thing called? Sinusitis, whatever it is.
Sinus.
Yeah, sinus issues. My in the middle of the night, my heart was fluttering. It fluttered, like it felt really bit weird. And then a few days later, Esme had the same symptoms. The back of her head was like hurting quite a lot. I never get headaches, and my head felt like it was throbbing a bit. So it started off with the heart, and then it starts with a bit of pressure in the head, and now it's nasal stuff. And I find this interesting because they're symptoms of meningitis. Meningitis is brain swelling. Like, I'm not saying we had meningitis, but that's like there's a spectrum. There's a big end of the spectrum. Lots of people at the beginning of the spectrum. Not that it's going to get worse, but that this seems to be something that I'm sure is related to the fog. And I think that Simone has something to say about the fog as well, too, perhaps. But I think that what is happening is that 6 years is going to be rolled out in 2030. We're in 2026. 2019 was the beginning of the solar cycle. 2030 is the end of the solar cycle. They tested out some 5G tech in 2019, messed up the heart, made us sick. Now they're doing the same. And then 2030, we really need to start building ourselves up over the next 4 years with these attacks, which aren't viruses. It's EMF, weaponry, it's HARP, it's shit they put in our water, shit they put in the air. It's not anything you can escape from. We just have to be stronger. And we've got 4 years to kind of get stronger. So
well, welcome. We have somebody that has joined us, and it is Simone. It's lovely to have you here, Simone. Welcome to the show. If we could just so that you know, I always say this to everybody, when we're not talking, if we could keep our mics off, because it can create feedback loops for the audio. And once the audio starts feedbacking, this AI system of StreamYard starts messing with everybody's audio. But it's a total honor to have you here, Simone. Please tell us a little bit about you. And yeah, man, welcome.
Oh, I think she jumped out, I think. Maybe she'll come back in.
Right, I'm in the show now. Can you hear me now? Fabulous.
Yes, absolutely. So, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. My name is Simone Plout. I'm a naturopath nutritionist, but my background originally was in medical diagnostics, radiation safety, and health and safety, and I've got qualifications in all those areas. So I bring a very diverse and unusual combination of knowledge and skills to this discussion. The thing that worries me about the current, the Operation Pegasus, the meningitis story, they've been, since the beginning of this year, they've been adding synthetic vitamin B9 or folic acid to all wheat food, all wheat products. Now, folic acid may sound like a really helpful thing, but it's actually synthetic. Our bodies can't use it very well. And when it builds up in the body, and some people's bodies build it up more than others because they can't deal with it, and that those people who can't deal with it very well amounts to almost half the UK population, certain ethnicities more than others. People from South India, for example, can't process folic acid as well as, but there's a variation, but we can't use it very well. And when it builds up in the body, it acts rather like methotrexate, which is a drug that's given for autoimmune diseases to damp down the immune system. So here we are, since the 1st of January, we've been adding a product, an involuntary medication via wheat-based foods to all our food. And that particular substance damps down the immune system. So that's number one, that's happened, and that's happening. Now, certain people don't eat wheat. I personally don't eat wheat because I've got wheat sensitivity, but most of the rest of us are being subjected to this involuntary medication. The other thing I would say is that the prophylactic antibiotics that are being handed out to the young people in the area in Kent, where they've got this outbreak of meningitis. And meningitis, of course, is inflammation of the coverings of the brain. It's not a diagnosis, it is a symptom. And you can have bacterial meningitis, you can have viral meningitis, you can have chemical meningitis, you can get radiation-induced meningitis. There are many, many ways for this to happen. So it is a symptom. And we're dealing with the electromagnetic radiation that pervades all our lives nowadays, the 5G and the microwave energy that's being used for communications actually can break or down-regulate or even overrule the blood-brain barrier. So if you are being injected with an antibiotic and then your blood-brain barrier is being down-regulated, then that is going to automatically take anything that you've ingested or has got into your bloodstream is going to easily get into your brain. So we're beginning to build a scenario here that is of great concern. So that was the point I wanted to bring to the table and flag up, which was why I contacted Toby while I was listening to the to this live stream, and I felt it was important to add it into the discussion. Ionizing radiation, as we know, interferes with the nucleus of cells, but just as a simplistic version, non-ionizing radiation interferes with membrane function. So it's not as blatant as ionizing radiation, but it will still have an effect. It's more subtle, but it will have an effect. And if you damage the membrane of the cell nucleus, then you're going to be able to allow things that could damage the nucleus into the nucleus. So it is not as blatant, but it will still cause potential for risk of harm to the genetic material in the cell. And that's all I want to say, really.
That's very interesting, and I'd like to tap your brain with this. So obviously, we're basically, just to paraphrase what you've said, is this: the radiation is going to mess up the cells. It's going to have an effect on the DNA. The cells in the brain are very sensitive; they can be easily affected. And of course, the toxins across the blood-brain barrier are going to get in there, and they're going to do their harm. But here's a question: what would you say is the best remedies that people can be using in terms of plant-based remedies that can best support and help for the detoxification process?
Well, avoiding wheat products unless they are whole grain wheat, so they haven't got this synthetic folic acid, this synthetic vitamin B9, methylfolate. Make sure your body is adequately supplied with methylfolate. It's available, if you're vegan, it's available from whole grains, it's available from green leafy plants, it's available from many places. It's called folate because it was originally named after foliage, so it's available. I mean, it's the fact that it's added into wheat products is because they strip all the goodies out and then by law have to add them back in, which is why we end up with all these synthetics added in. The way we can protect ourselves is eating as healthy a diet as possible, making sure our bodies are fully loaded up with all the goodies like magnesium and selenium and vitamin C and anthocyanins, which you get from real food. We're eating too much junk food and we're not getting the natural things. The other problem we've got, of course, is glyphosate, which is added to many foods. It was originally designed and developed to strip metal salts out of pipework, and it actually pulls the metals out of our bodies. Those metals are needed. We need iron in our blood, red blood cells. We need magnesium for our muscles. We need calcium. We need all of these metals. The key metal in the mitochondria is copper, and that is exquisitely well taken up by glyphosate. So avoiding foods that have got all this stuff in would be a really, really good start. Grow your own as much as you can. Make friends with farmers and buy your food that hasn't been messed about with from farmers. You can amazing what you can grow in a pot on your balcony or on your window box, or even in a yogurt pot in your kitchen. There's lots of things we can grow to supplement our diet, avoiding the chemicals, drinking plenty of clean water so our kidneys are working, avoiding overdoing the alcohol and toxins so your liver functions properly. There's lots of things we can do. Filtering your water so you've got clean drinking water. There's lots we can do to alleviate or mitigate these adverse things, and making sure you've got enough vitamin D in your body, getting your kit off and out in the sun when it's possible to get sunshine that will cause UV, the conversion of cholesterol into vitamin D in our skin. But you need plenty of skin exposed to the sun in order to do that. And what are we doing with our children nowadays? Covering them up to avoid them getting sunburn, and they're not getting the vitamin D that they used to. But you can actually get vitamin D from mushrooms. If you put your mushrooms on a sunny window ledge, they'll actually synthesize vitamin D from the sun. So there's lots of ways we can get it. If you're vegan, there are always plant-based options. But for people who eat meat, liver is a great place. And dairy, full-fat dairy is a great place to get your vitamin D. Summer butter is an absolute powerhouse. That's the butter that's the cows have been eating grass and herbs in the summer. It's bright yellow butter. That butter everybody should be stocking up, putting in the freezer and having through the year, because it's absolutely chock full of vitamin D and K and all these goodies. So those are things you could do to mitigate.
Yeah, I'll just add to that as well. Iodine is really good for radiation as well. My boys, who are 4 and 7, love seaweed. Oh God, what are they? You get these little packets of seaweed. Your mic's muted, Simone.
Nori flakes, nori. It's interesting. When I was researching for a book I was writing on health, I spent 6 weeks in Japan. They hand out sachets of nori, which is the stuff they wrap sushi with. That's handed out everywhere. But that's not just good as a source of iodine, which protects your thyroid from radioactive iodine, but also heavy metals are not absorbed from your diet. So if you eat seaweed with things like fish that's got mercury in it, you won't absorb the mercury. It's there's a jellification that happens in your gut with the seaweed, with the carrageenan in the seaweed, and that actually takes all these heavy metals out. So there's a number of and other fallout atoms. Strontium 90 is a radioactive form of strontium that you get in radioactive fallout. So that one won't be absorbed if you're eating plenty of seaweed. So there's lots of ways to protect ourselves, but many of us are short of iodine. You actually inhale iodine when you walk along the seashore. There's iodine in the air from the seaweed. So people who live by the sea don't tend to suffer with iodine deficiency, but that protects your thyroid gland. So yeah, but your son's very clever, eating seaweed. Very, very wise thing to do. Very wise. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting when we look at this, like how our diets have been transformed, and I think a large part of the psyop that we've been conditioned with is food, because our food is the first way to get into our brains. And it seems to me that most people are suffering some form of malnutrition and they don't know it. And everybody looks at my boy and they go like, why is like, what's with your boy? He looks like he weighs now. So he's 9 years old and he weighs less than 100 pounds, but not much less than 100 pounds. And it's muscle and it's bone density. And I caught my 9-year-old trying to research how to use Blender. Blender is animation software. He's teaching himself how to animate. You know, these kids, when you give your child proper nutrition, you see them next to other children and the other children look diminutive, right? And I think it's because I've taken a lot of care in making sure that he gets a wide variety of plant-based foods all the time. And he eats a lot of yogurts, full-fat yogurts. And I take him on the mountain and I take off my top and I say, if you want to take off your top, take it off. He takes off his top. We walk in the morning sun for like an hour, getting sun, you know, on our top half of the body, wearing shorts, getting sun on our legs and our top half, and like a good hour of that. So his tan is good. We live by the sea. I encourage him to go and stand in the water. You absorb iodine through the skin, right? If you stand in the sea, like even if you just stand in it for like 10 minutes, you know, you just go put your lower legs in the water for 10 minutes. You probably absorb the iodine hit you need for the day. So, you know, I think like we've been conditioned into this weird world of GMO food, frankenfoods, and obviously the wheat. I think the wheat is a big problem. Like I don't usually buy bread, and lately I've been buying bread. He loves bread, and I try and keep him away from bread because his mother likes to give him sandwiches all the time. And I'm like, I don't mind him having sandwiches if they're laced with lettuce and grated carrot and, you know, sliced tomato and cucumber. And if they're that fat with vegetables, a little layer of cheese, I'm good to go, you know. But I think like we need to really start going back to eating local produce. And this is something that most people don't do. We buy all this crap that's been irradiated. I wonder, tell me, does irradiation really affect a lot of the nutrition that you're speaking of?
Absolutely. If you buy spices like turmeric and cinnamon from the supermarket and they're not organic, they will have been gamma irradiated. And that actually has a huge impact on the benefits, the health benefits of those spices. They won't have the pharmacological action that the fresh turmeric or the turmeric that's not been irradiated. What happens is that the ionizing, the gamma radiation that's fired at these spices, the moisture in the air will react with the gamma radiation and form hydrogen peroxide, which is very reactive oxygen. So the antioxidant benefits of those spices will have been neutralized before it even gets into the supermarket shelf, because it's been oxidized through that process. It extends the shelf life. Molds and fungi have been killed off, so it will stay fresh, in inverted commas, longer, but it will have had any of its wonderful anti-inflammatory benefits completely taken out by the action of the gamma irradiation.
That's like the conspiracy of alkalized cocoa.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, talking of frankenfoods, Club and Penguin bars and Cadbury's chocolate isn't actually chocolate anymore. Have you heard this? It's chocolate flavor.
Yeah.
So Penguin bars, Club bars, if you're a parent and you give this to your child as a snack for school, I mean, I don't know why you would anyway, but if you do, thinking, oh, I'll give it a nice little cheap treat of chocolate, it's not.
No.
It's actually full of rubbish, and like the last ingredient is like 20% cocoa mass. So much so they've had to call it chocolate flavor It's
Yeah,
not even
yeah.
chocolate anymore.
It's not legally, it's not
Yeah.
got the legal minimum that they can call it chocolate. And a lot of the fats they use to replace the cocoa butter, which is a saturated, healthy saturated fat, which does not hydrogenate, it does not go rancid easily, like the unsaturated fats can easily become rancid. And when they become rancid, they taste horrible. So what they do is they clean them with hexane, which is a petroleum solvent, which there is residue left in the material, and that's how they get rid of the rancid flavor. So that is going to be inflammatory, and you don't want that in your food. Absolutely do not want that in your food. So make sure any chocolate that you eat is the best quality you can afford, and make sure it's real chocolate rather than, because real chocolate is a health food. It's got magnesium and
Iron.
all sorts of wonderful things in it. Theobromine, which is a feel good, it's wonderful stuff, but the fake stuff is horrible and highly inflammatory.
I wonder if it's because they're using the UK used to have decent rapeseed oil up until about 8 years ago, 9 years ago. I don't know. I think they were being invaded by the GMOs like in the last decade. But I know that most of the rapeseed is produced in the USA and it's GMO and it's like bottom shelf irradiated crap. And I believe that's what they're replacing it with.
Yeah,
and that
hydrogenated.
rapeseed you shouldn't even give it to your animals.
No, you shouldn't. And the interestingly enough, rapeseed, the pollen from rapeseed is a very potent cause of hay fever and asthma. And I remember around the city of Cambridge in the UK, there was they planted all the fields with rapeseed, and they had a massive increase in hay fever and asthma attacks amongst children because of the asthmagenic, the irritant to the respiratory tract. And if something's bad for your respiratory tract, you can pretty much guarantee it has other chemicals that are within the chemistry of the plant are going to be inflammatory to the human body. So it's always a warning sign that there's a problem with that particular plant. Rapeseed, as I agree with you, used to be like wheat used to be a health food, but the crossbreeding and the dwarf wheat and the selective breeding, they've now got something that's really inflammatory, and nothing like the wheat that was being eaten in the Middle Ages. The wheat that we have in our shops nowadays is a very different substance, much lower in protein, much higher in starch. So basically it's sugar, which is probably driving all of the diabetes as well. So not good for us at all.
That and corn. I noticed when I was living in the Himalayas, I used to eat what they call taja corn, maca. They call it taja maca. And the corn's like, it's colored, man. Some of it's purple, some of it's like orange. You don't buy this corn anymore. And when you eat it, you actually feel the taste of it. All the corn that you buy these days is what is it? A lot of it's produced probably in South Africa, where I am, which is GMO. It may not be, I don't think it's BT GMO, so it's not, at least it doesn't have jellyfish or some other weird crap in it, but it's still GMO. GMO is GMO. But you know, it's quite interesting, like what you're saying about the pollen and the hay fever, because that's so the rapeseed is particularly bad for your heart, right? And a lot of these fats, they really impact the heart's ability to operate optimally. And so from TCM, Chinese medicine, the heart relates to being anguished, to being anxious, to being hypertension, hyperexcitement. There's a lot of stress related to the heart if the heart's out of balance. So the emotional hormonal fluctuations from an unbalanced heart, not having a good rhythm, is going to affect that. And the lungs being related to, in TCM, is related to joy and sadness. So if your lungs are being affected, you're more likely to become depressed. So by them putting these into our foods, they increase our chances of stress and hypertension related emotional conditions like anxiety and depression. Isn't that interesting?
One of the other, sorry, I interrupted you.
It's fine. I just want to say quickly that the guy who we're talking about corn, and the guy who invented cornflakes was involved in child mutilation. And again, corn, it disrupts our hormones. And this is why there's a whole push for soya milk as well, to do with our hormones. And that's why soya milk is free in cafes, and you've got to pay extra if you want oat milk. Soya milk's always free. Why is it free? Because it disrupts they probably get some kind of tax break on it. But yeah, anyway, Kellogg's cornflakes, the guy who made it was involved in child mutilation in one way or another. If anyone wants to go look that up, then feel free. So they kind of mutilate our children in more than one way. He did it, and then it's with the diet as well. And let's be real, Weetabix, cornflakes, it isn't breakfast. Don't give your children that shit. Come on.
Absolutely.
I'll just add one thing I was just going to say one thing. The reason it's so cheap is because it's animal produce. It's produced for animal feed. 90% of the soya in the world is produced so cheaply under such bad conditions. It's not actually produced for humans, but somehow they managed to wangle it registration, and so they're giving us animal feed.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is that in Japan, they eat fermented soy food. They eat soy sauce. They eat tempeh and natto, which is fermented, and the thyroid gland damaging molecules in the soya are removed by the fermentation process. And unfortunately, eating a lot of soy food is not good for your thyroid gland. It can cause goiter, which is swelling of the thyroid. So it's not a good thing to be having a lot of. I have it very occasionally, or I have it fermented, but occasionally I'll have some tofu. I love the stuff, but I'll only have it very occasionally as a treat.
Yeah, fermented food is amazing for you, like kimchi. What are the three keys? Kimchi, kombucha. I'm missing one as well. But yeah,
sauerkraut is cheap.
Sauerkraut
and brilliant.
Yes.
Oh, and it's so easy to make. It's so easy to make. I make mine with red cabbage and white cabbage, and it goes the most fabulous shade of pink when the cell walls of the cabbage break down. You get this wonderful pink mixture when it's ready to go in the fridge. It's lovely stuff. Yeah.
With the word ferment, what I've written down here is that for mind, ment is mind is spirit, and then another way to spell it is form and ent. So either forment for the mind, or form ent being spirit being mind. The Hermetic principle, all is mind, all is mental, just means that all is spirit. Like everything is a spirit, not literally in our heads, but just there's a spirit all around us, like all is mental. And there's a gut-brain connection as well. So if you have a healthy gut, you have a healthy mind, because your gut is your second brain, it's known as well. So it's interesting with the wordplay of the fermenting. You can kind of see where it's at. I always have fun splitting words, making my own way, because I don't know what literally fermenting like means. I know what it is. I know what you do. You get food, put it in vinegar, you leave it a while. But like, what's the essence of the word? Ferment. It's for your mind. Because if you have a healthy gut, you'll be able to think clearly, think with clarity. This is why there's so much shit in food messing up our guts. And it's not just our guts. It's kind of, it clogs up the flow. All of these, I think, is it omega-6? All of these seed oils and fats and stuff people aren't getting enough omega-3s. The
Yeah.
number 6 is related to the body. In my mind's eye, the number 6 is an F, which is frequency, which is kind of matter, which is the physical. And then the number 3, first off you have zinc, which is a number 30, which relates to the zinc spark. But omega-3s are good for your mind, because I use this chart, the 3, 6, 9. The 3 is kind of the mind, the 6 is the body, and then the 9 is the connection of both the mind and the body. There we go. Here it is. Now, Simone might not have heard of. Are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Yep.
Okay.
This isn't the New Age Enneagram that was created in the 60s by the psychologists.
No.
This is the ancient one that comes from Chaldea, and it's based upon the occult lore. And I mean, they're very similar, but also this is like, you can see the actual geometry. This is the sacred geometry. And there are 3 different enneagrams here. One of them is the 3, 6, 9, the green. And there are 3 green triangles within here. And each of the 3 green triangles, the numbers add up to 3, 6, and 9, which is interesting. But looking at the number 4 here, you can see 4. If you look at it, you can see there's a relation to the number 6. And the relation to the number 6 is rather profound. And it angles in number 5 here. And 6 obviously is Venus. This is to do with your mental equilibrium. It's to do with your thyroid gland, your parathyroid gland, ability to think, metabolism, control, which is obviously working in tandem with the pancreas and has a powerful association with your gut. And number 4 is obviously related to the what the metabolism is going to build in your physical body. And so it's related to the North Node. It's related to our strong sort of structural elements in the physical body, very closely associated with the number 8. As you can see, there's the yellow, there's the masculine connection there. But if you look here, you'll see what you were saying about the number 4 and 8 just from the occult. If you look at probably one of the most occulted symbols that there is the sign of Saturn. And when we look at this, we see, whoa, Agathan, what are you doing, buddy? Where are you going? The keyboard's not a playground. You can see here that you can see the number 4 and the 6. This is representing your spinal column here, 4, 5, and 6. And you can see it here on the left-hand side with the actual blocks, the 4, 5, and 6. That is representing the Sushumna in Vedic cosmology, for example, or the middle pillar in Western occult traditions. But it actually is rooted in the number 4. So anything that's going to affect 4 is going to destabilize 6. So anything that affects the proverbial elements of your physical substance through your bowels and your guts is going to affect your mind. And so we find that a lot of our mental programs, like, for example, migraines usually start in the gut. And I'm sure as a naturopath, this is something that you've probably, you're used to, right? Migraines always start in the gut, don't they?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There'll be an imbalance with the acid alkaline balance in the body, which of course is gut as well. What are you putting into your body that you've got ended up with an imbalance? Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and those little microbes play a big role. We think that they're just there to digest food, but they're actually there to control our metabolism. They're there to control our immune system. And they're also there as like our thoughts. Like, they've discovered how much of our brain is in our gut, haven't they?
Yeah.
What is that organ called? The appendix, and there's another one, not just the appendix. What's the gallbladder? The gallbladder's got a lot of neurology going on in the gallbladder, and we've got so many neurological cells around the solar plexus that, like, we think with our guts, and we've been taught to think that we think with our brains, but actually it's our brains that are like processing the information. It's our gut that does the thinking.
Yeah, and of course a lot of our neurotransmitters are actually cooked up by the gut bacteria and then track up the vagus nerve into the brain. So yep, a lot of that goes on as well.
It's very interesting to see how these ancient depictions, which are like really from deep occult, which you would consider like a series of magic squares that people, the likes of John Dee, would have used, how they are reflecting this physiology and this basic cosmology and these ideas of how our physical systems work. And I think like this has been occulted, this has been hidden from us. And the reason is like the word snake oil, and I've always repeated this, like I lived in India for many years, and they use cobra venom, man. They use snake oil, and it's medicine. But in the West, we're taught to believe that snake oil is fake. No, snake oil is some of the most powerful medicine you will ever get. And so we've demonized snake oil, we've demonized metaphorically nature. And now we've got these pharmaceutical corporations that are really just copying nature, putting it in a pill form, and giving us a toxic version of what's already available. And everything that they can give us, we can get in nature, just it tastes a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, an example is the Manjaro and Ozempic drug. This is actually the venom of a ghillie monster. So it's it's one of the most lucrative drugs that's ever been launched, and actually it's the venom of a humble creature, which is an interesting point that we're looking at how it's being exploited. I think that's a domestic modern slavery issue, frankly. But anyway, there we go.
Did you have something you wanted to say, Shinobi?
I've missed the chat for like the last 5 minutes.
Okay.
So I did hear snake oil pop up. I've been working on a little video messing around in CapCut where you were talking about snake oil in the previous chat, which I've been tinkering with. I'll send that over to you shortly in the next few days. See what you think about it. But yeah, it's very, very interesting with the snake oil. On what you've said before, I haven't heard what you guys have been talking about. All I heard was the word snake oil, but about how it's been weaponized against us, and that how it used to be like a very powerful like medicine for people, and it's been inverted. And it's like the phrase pharmakeia as well. People think that is negative. I mean, it is now, of how they've kind of weaponized it. Obviously, we had the burning of the witches and the medicine people, and like where we're at now is because Esme's training to be a homeopath, and as far as I see it, homeopathy is like the feminine pillar, and the our modern kind of pharmakeia, the scientism, the jibby jabbies, is like the masculine phallus. And it's like with homeopathy, it's the homeopath. It's the way our body helps kind of remember what it is to be healthy, and it uses the circle, the sphere. It uses wisdom, Sophia, and then the jabs is the masculine phallus, which puts things in your body. It's like this kind of war on health. You know, get this vaccine to fight the battle against these viruses. So it's a very, very interesting there, because the homeopathy was kind of demonized. It was the Flexner report, if anyone wants to go check that out, to make way for the kind of modern pharmaceutical industry. I think it was in the 1900s, the beginning of the 1900s, around then, when there was a big shift in the way that we kind of view health and medicine and healing. You know, they used to put people up on the roofs of hospitals in the sun to heal from the flu or fever, because that's all you need. You need rest and the sun. Now they keep
fresh air.
Exactly. So, and now they kind of keep us chugging along, like they want us like staying in 9-to-5 jobs. So rather than people just resting and like, for a good example, actually, I think our clocks went forward the other day by an hour. I can't remember what the term is, daylight saving. Now that is going to make people ill or unwell because it disrupts our natural rhythms. And instead of people at certain times of the year resting or like following the cycles of the sun, waking up with the sun, going home when it becomes dark, resting, we're now surrounded by all of this blue light, this false light that people are following in technology. So there's this 9 to 5 rhythm that is constant, and people aren't getting enough daylight. And when they're sick, they just get jabs, or they take pharmaceuticals, just chugging along. I kind of view it as the car in ancient Egypt. The vital essence or life force is our driving force, our spirit. Now, what is happening to our car is it's being filled full of petroleum, like we fill our cars full of petrol. Now, a car filled with petrol is only going to go a certain distance. If you add hydrogen to that, I've heard with hydrogen engines, they can go a hell of a lot further, a hell of a lot faster. Now, hydrogen make things lighter. It's one of the lightest element after the ether. Now, with pumping people full of petroleum or lead, it's going to make people feel sluggish. So your car, your spirit, or your life force isn't going to be able to travel so far. So I just find that interesting with the spellings there of the car that we drive and our actual car that we use to drive us through this realm, like our spirit. So yeah, I'll just want to mention some stuff about this exercise, Pegasus, again, is that if people look up disease X, which was supposed to be happening in 2026, which of course is an X, like I mentioned earlier, some of the symptoms of this are high fever, fatigue, respiratory ailments, gastrointestinal issues, neurological manifestations, so what, headaches or brain swelling, rashes, and general body pain. Now, this is basically just like any symptoms. This is covering all the symptoms, but all of these symptoms you can get from radiation poisoning. All of these symptoms happened in 2020 after the rollout of 5G. This is why I'm sure there's a link between 6G and this meningitis outbreak. But the thing is, people get meningitis every year, and it's horrible. It sounds awful. My sister almost died as a child from it. So I understand it is a thing, but it's being kind of weaponized, that they were trying to kind of push this outbreak, which I think has started to simmer down a little bit now. They've tried that. I wonder what they'll try next. But it's just interesting, if you look at all these fictional diseases of disease X, they're not sure what it's going to be. And then this Nipah virus, which in America, they had a kind of scenario last year about Nipah virus. And in January in India, there were 2 cases of Nipah virus. We've had 2 cases of meningitis, and then followed by a few more after that. It just seems like they're just trying to plant these seeds, put these things out there to see what people latch onto. But what I do know is that a lot of people have become unwell recently who don't usually. Lots of people like kind of blocked throats, coughing up stuff, sinuses, like myself, because I've been following people online. On the school drop-off, heard loads of people coughing. We've had a lot of fog here. Like, is this just represent dense energy? Are people starting to become a bit closed off? Are people starting? Is there a separation between the brain and the heart, and it's affecting this area here? It's not just the fog in our minds. This dense energy, it's reflected in the world, and of course the fog blocks out the sun. And whether they've started, we know they've been, chemtrailing a hell of a lot, especially the last week or so. But they have plans to put sulfur dioxide in the air, And this was an Israeli startup which was pushing this. And we have in the UK ARIA, ARIA, which is the equivalent of DARPA. And their slogan is risky science, but with benefits. So this is risky science that they're doing, blocking out the sun, putting sulfur dioxide, monoxide, whatever, into the air to block out the sun, because the sun's bad, because the sun's dangerous, because of climate change, because the climate is the weather, and the weather is the ether. And we are the ether, we are connected to the climate, and this climate is our psyche, which is changing and people are becoming more aware. So what have they got to do? Quick, block out the sun. Quick, roll out 6G faster, because people are starting to tap into the universal stream of consciousness. People are starting to become more aware and looking after themselves and, you know, what's going on. So this ties into the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The first one, Pegasus, the white horse, freedoms. The second one, the red horse, war, which we're seeing now with this fire horse year we're in. We're now in Aries season, you know, and obviously this year there was going to be war escalated. Of course there was, and it is, and it has been. So yeah, lots going on.
I would just add to what's just been said about the fog can be used to deliver bacterial bioweaponry into the air. So we need to make sure our vitamin D levels are topped up, our vitamin C levels, and that we keep ourselves as healthy as possible, so our immune systems have got the wherewithal to protect us from these things. And a really clever thing to do is make sure that you have your salt pipe, which I have one here. This is a salt pipe. I sniff, but I put a couple of drops of Lugol's iodine in here and sniff it up my nose to coat my nasal passages with iodine, which acts as an extra defensive layer. So if I'm out in that fog, I have got a layer. My mucous membranes are coated with a bit of iodine to protect me without doing me any harm whatsoever. So lots of inexpensive, clever things we can do. And a salt pipe is a really good, along with some Lugol's iodine, is a really good way of adding to your defensive strategies.
And also,
one could surely add that to a vaporizer, couldn't one? In one's room, a tea light with a bowl of water, vaporizer, vaporizing iodine, and breathe it in the mornings. No?
Yeah, I don't know how, because this one is just going up your nose. It's not getting into your eyes. Some people may find iodine in the eyes could be irritant. I don't know. That's I'd just be a little wary of that. I wouldn't want to say how that would be, but with this, you're just going into the nose, so you're not putting it anywhere near your eyes. People can become irritated by, and of course, children. I'd be always very, very careful with children to reduce any dose, and also with people who may have hay fever going into the hay fever season. If your mucous membranes or the surface of your eye is already inflamed due to sensitization to pollen, then you are more susceptible to, you're going to take in a greater dose than you may intend with that. So it's a great idea, but I just that would be my immediate cautious response.
Also, as well, salt is really like cleansing too. Apparently, it's really good to bathe in salt. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because, sorry if this grosses anyone out, but I swear to God, some demons have been coming out of my nasal passages this past week or two when I've been clearing this stuff out. Like there's there's energies put into this fog. I sensed it as soon as we had this fog a month ago, a few weeks ago. I was saying to Esme, I sort of want to stay inside. I don't know if I want to go out today. We went out, and then a day or two later, this started. It started off with the middle of the night. I had heart fluctuation, which I never have. That's not normal. We were talking earlier, I think, before we came on about the heart and relating to
I did
meningitis.
hear it. I heard
these are all meningitis symptoms. Head feeling a bit swollen. This sort of nasal issues. So I find that very interesting. And like with salt, inhaling salt, it can just, I guess it will help just cleanse you generally, as well as clearing the airways. It's really good, you know. And also adding Celtic salt to water to sort of get some of that chi back, to get some of that charge flowing as well.
Absolutely.
I just want to make a quick plug. This is the vitamin D I use. It's important when you take vitamin D to have it with K2.
Always.
D3 and K2.
Always.
Yeah, people might not know that. This stuff's called Phoenix Nutrition that we get. Vitamin D3 and K2 need to be mixed together, because you have some vitamin D mixed with K1 or some just D on its own.
You need to go somewhere sunny, brother.
Yeah.
You need to be in a sunny place where you get enough sunlight and you don't have to ever think about it.
Yeah. But one thing I would say, the highest level of vitamin K2 in the body is actually in the salivary glands. So your mouth, your teeth are being bathed with K2. And that's the only part of the body where your teeth are exposed to the elements. So K2, vitally important to maintain the mineralization of bone, and particularly in the mouth where the teeth are exposed. That's exposed bone. It's got enamel on it, but they are exposed bone. And in order to keep the teeth healthy, we need K2. In fact, if you look at the work of Weston Price, the dental surgeon who was out touring the world in the late 1880s, he identified something that provided really healthy dental arches, and in fact he called it factor X, and we now know that factor X was actually vitamin K2. So another interesting side to the K2 story.
I wonder why he called it factor X. Do you know?
Well, he didn't know what it was. He knew it was high in summer butter, but he didn't know what it was. They didn't have the chemical analysis capability, and also he was touring the world, photographing indigenous peoples and seeing the effect of Western diets on the health and the dental arch, the shape of the dental arches in their young people. And when we moved away from indigenous diets, we ended up with these narrow arches, and a whole new branch of dentistry, orthodontics, then appeared, because we had our dental arches weren't big enough for our teeth anymore. So we had all these problems started appearing.
I think that has a lot to do with our nutrition levels. Maybe it also has to do with like what I was talking about with my son's growth rate, because he never gets sick. And if your children don't get sick because they eat well, then they grow optimally and their bones grow optimally. And I think everybody's a bit stunted. Nutritionally, we're all stunted our growth because we're not getting optimal nutrition, so we don't grow optimally. Like you see it in plants, right? One plant optimally nutritional, another plant not. The difference in scale is going to be massive, and it's going to be a permanent scale difference throughout their whole plant life, even for the non-perennial or perennial plants. And I wanted to share something here as well. This is something that I personally love. So this is the Kala Namak. This is the black salt. I use pink and black salt, the Himalayan salts. And what it's got in it, I mean, it's got the sodium chloride, but it's also got like sulfur, 450 milligrams, which is a significant amount of sulfur if you think about it. It's got soluble iron, 43.1 milligrams, and it's got a hit of potassium in it as well, and it's also got the basics that you need, silicon and calcium and magnesium. These are all important, but like I think the sulfur is something that's been downplayed, because I noticed whenever I went to and this stuff, by the way, is really good for pulling through your nose. Like I'll run it through my nose, and it's called neti. It's a yoga practice, and you run it through one way, then the other way, then the other way, and then you gargle with it, and you clean your entire nasal passage with the salt, and it absorbs all of these minerals while you're doing that, which is obviously good for the cell walls. I think silica obviously is going to make the cell walls really resilient, isn't it? On one level, and silica deficiency is probably something a lot of people also suffer from as well these days, especially women with the osteoporosis, and there's a number of minerals that I think are central to this. Silica obviously helps with the uptake of other minerals, but this story with sulfur is really interesting, because sulfur protects from genetic damage, does it not? And this is why you'll go to any healing spring, like you go to India, you go to Himalayas, there's all these sacred healing springs, and the first thing you smell when you get there is sulfur. You get in the water and your body's absorbing sulfur, and you get out and you feel so young. I think sulfur has a lot to do with aging, maybe, and I think it's one of the reasons why we get sulfites instead of sulfur.
Yeah, and of course, sulfur is in sulforaphanes in broccoli sprouts, for example, which is fantastic for clearing mercury. And sulfur is incredibly important for joint health and so on. And silica is good for clearing aluminium. So all absolutely. I'm going to look into that salt. I've not come across that one before, so I'm going to look into. You said that's a Himalayan black salt.
Yeah, just be careful. Sorry, this incense getting very smoky. Just be careful when you're buying the black salt, because they do have island black salt that's made at volcanic centers, which they crush up black volcanic minerals with the salt. It's called Kala Namak, Kal. I'll flash it on the screen so you can see what it's called.
Lovely, thank you.
Let me take it up to the top there. There you can see. You see, I'll highlight it. I don't know if you can see that well. There we go. Kalanamak. That's Kala Namak. So when you're checking for black salt, make sure there's Kala Namak. You can buy it from. Where are you based? Are you in Brighton? Are you in near London? Or
I'm near Brighton. Yeah.
So okay, I don't know how many of the places you'll get it there, but I know that the next time you go to London, because you probably go to London once in a while, don't you? Like you're just down the drag. Next time you go to London, if you go to like North London area, there's all those little Indian shops, like Kingsbury, Queensbury, all those like places. You'll find that there you'll be able to get a lot of that stuff. You'll also be able to get like the thing called Karela. Karela is the traditional gourd, the bitter gourd, the traditional one. They still have them in India, which is really good for your sugar metabolism and to protect your pancreas and, from diabetes and all of that. So you'll be able to get it there, and you should be able to get it relatively cheaply, and you can buy it as actual rock chunks, which you then bash with a little mallet, and you put it into a mortar and pestle, and you crush it up, and it's like the raw salt. They've not mixed anything in with it, because that's how they find it in the Himalayas.
Thank you.
Yeah. That stuff's golden. You get the pink one as well. The pink one has got more magnesium in it, which is good. We need magnesium, I think like magnesium very good for the brain, isn't it? And it's, a lot of these minerals they've drained this out of our. I think with the super farming that we're suffering is they go to one piece of ground and they say, how many potatoes can we take out of one piece of ground? But the minerals in the ground don't increase, but the produce from that ground increases. So each piece of produce, if it's a potato or a carrot, whatever it is, has now got fractionally less minerals. So you then would have to overeat to get the right amount of minerals, where in the old days we didn't overfarm one piece of land. So when that vegetable grew, it had enough of all the sources of minerals in it so that you could get enough of these minerals. And I think like a lot of these things are missing. And I don't think it's an accident, because I think a lot of these minerals are what's causing neurological defects. Like you say, all these other effects. If one has a reasonable sulfur intake, I think it decreases the chances of cancer significantly.
Yeah, and selenium as well, which is missing from our soil. Very much so as well.
Exactly.
Yep. One of the things I do is I collect seaweed from the beach and I put it into my compost heap, so that I'm making compost that's got lots of minerals in from the sea. And I grow giant tomatoes. They're fabulous and very delicious.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about starting a business here in Cape Town, because we have so much seaweed that washes up here, and I'm at a nature reserve, so the seaweed is clean, because they're not allowed to dump, and there's not much. It's all controlled around this area, so it's relatively pristine. And I was thinking about getting large vats and making fertilizer juice, because you can make a fertilizer juice out of seaweed, right? You can ferment it and collect the liquid, and then you can dilute that liquid to the correct strength, and you can sell it, and people just pour it, they mix it into their water supply, or they pour it over their gardens. When they water their gardens, just sprinkle some of this over and then water it in. And like you say, there's so much powerful nutrients that we get. And I think it's one of the problems is that we're not growing our own food, because when you grow your own plants, you take care in them. Like you'll make teas for your plants. For example, do you make teas out of worm castings and what have you? And you add that, and you literally watch the way it changes the way things will grow. And we're living in an age where they just throw chemicals at the soil.
I know. I make a comfrey tea, and I also take the leaves from my rhubarb, and that makes wonderful plant food. So yeah, absolutely. Different plants in different parts of the world, clearly, but yeah, absolutely. And many of these plants, of course, are medicinal. Comfrey is wonderful for healing bruises and fractures. So it's good for the plants and good for us as well.
What is the root that's very, very common? It grows just about everywhere. It's one of the most common. It's a little white flower, and you use the roots.
The marshmallow?
No, it's more common than that.
Is it like a daisy?
It does look like a daisy.
Yeah, because homeopathically, that's Bellis perennis. That's the Latin name for it. And that daisy is used for low backache, coccyx pain. That's a wonderful remedy homeopathically.
Yeah, there's so many things that we've got in our gardens that we don't use. The one that I'm thinking about is, I think it's related to the daisy.
Dandelion.
Dandelion.
That's a yellow flower.
Dandelion root.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a yellow flower. Maybe it's white flower in South Africa. It may be a different variation on the plant, because you get different plants in or different varieties.
I think we have white ones and yellow ones in different range of color. But those dandelion, they are related to the daisies, aren't they? Like, or are they not?
They get along.
That I can't answer. I don't know that answer to that particular.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking about the flowers. The little dandelion flowers, and especially the scent. Like dandelion, I was wondering. I remember during COVID, people were saying that making dandelion root tea is probably one of the most powerful, cheap, accessible things that everybody should have access to, probably in their gardens or in the local field. to be able to make a solution that will actually help to protect the blood-brain barrier and reduce the, what would you think? Would dandelion be a very powerful agent for this? And also I've heard very powerful for helping reduce the risks of cancer.
Well, it's a most wonderful liver tonic, liver support. So I have dandelion coffee every morning. Wonderful, wonderful stuff for supporting the liver. And yeah, anything that supports the liver is going to detoxify the body more quickly. So that would be my take on it. But it may be there's other benefits that I'm missing here. Maybe there are other things. I don't know everything. But it would definitely be a good thing to have to help with the detoxification pathways, because if they're working, then everything else is going to work well.
Here's another question, thinking about all of these Pegasus missions that they have, which is like so much of it is medical research. I wonder, and since we've got you here, we can pick your brain. The idea that cancer may be really not what we think it is, that it may just be accumulation of toxins that our body's reacting to. What would your thoughts be on that?
Well, the way that some of the wonderful natural treatments for cancer that have been used through the ages, with juicing of vegetables and coffee enemas, which helps the liver clear toxins through the liver more readily, and flooding the body with minerals and plant-based healing food and high vitamin intake through the plants. That suggests, if that works so well, that suggests that we're talking about the body detoxifying. And so if you've got a build-up of toxin, then and the body can't clear it, then it's going to hold it up somewhere in a form a membrane or a capsule around it, because it can't clear it. So that makes sense to me. And then we've got the parasite links as well, which are increasingly becoming more widely known and recognized. So there's a lot more to the disease which we call cancer, but which is actually many, many different health derangements of healthy metabolism. I mean, I know that cancer cells tend to need sugar. They don't do well on a ketogenic diet. So that's another way that we know these are cells which are metabolically not functioning very well and are having to rely on sugar for their energy source, rather than having the metabolic resilience and flexibility that normal cells have. So it's not a straightforward, I'm not giving you a straightforward answer, but I don't think it's a straightforward issue. I think it's a multiplicity of disease processes, and you can have many different types of what we call cancer in different systems and parts of the body, depending on what's going wrong metabolically. So I hope that's a satisfactory response, but it's not one, there's not one thing going on, it's multiple issues.
Yeah, I'm sure parasites relate to light as well, because I've heard that some cancers can be a buildup of parasites, and the way I view that is just if there's a blockage or a blocked light, like within us, it's going to be filled by another, which would be a parasite. And what's interesting is that we have parasites on the earth as well. We call them the elite, those in power, who are actually trying to block our light, which is the sun, which is funny.
Yeah.
So we have parasites within, parasites without. And I strongly believe it's to do with blocking light, because when there's something that we're not observed or tapping into, or our potential, if there's like blocked chakras or vortexes, that space is going to be filled by another if we're avoiding it, if we're blocked it, and if we're blocking it rather. that space is going to get filled. And I like that ties into light with the parasites kind of being a build up of things we're not observing or tapped into. That I do believe that light can in turn heal parasites and get rid of the parasite, much like the parasites on the earth, which are in power. When we observe their plans, when we shine our light, that this shadow that's leaked into this realm, this parasite, will dissolve and go. Like as within, so without. When we observe what is within us, when we start tapping into our subconscious, when we start healing these this trauma or wounds, this kind of space, this darkness which we've been taught to avoid and not look into, when we start shining light on these spaces of ourself rather than avoidance, rather than going into, using intuition, tapping into what we are, rather than avoiding, because people have voids in themselves which they fill with alcohol, they fill with crap, sugary food, they fill with all sorts of things. But when we start tapping in, looking into, shining the light, we'll feel less heavy and become a bit lighter. And it's the same with the elite in the world as well, all the horrendous stuff they're doing. When this stuff is revealed, as it is being revealed, it's kind of the darkness emerging, and kind of as more light is shed on that, this parasite will go. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. It's like as within, so without.
Absolutely. I'm going to have to disappear because I've got another appointment, but thank you for inviting me onto the show. It's been such a joy to join you, and I hope I've been able to contribute something of value, and great work that you're doing.
Thanks for joining us today, Simone. You must come back. People in the chat have been saying, can Simone come back another time? So yeah, you're welcome to come back and join us another time for a conversation. And thank you for your input today and what you shared.
A great pleasure. And
Thank you.
for the amazing work you're both doing. It's really increasing the light on this beautiful planet of ours is so important. So thank you both for what you're doing.
Thank you, dear Simone. It's been an honor having you. Sorry, I had to step out and deal with my little boy. Make him yogurt and fruit.
Well,
I promised him I'd make him
that you're such a hands-on dad. That's so lovely. That's great. I think
I feel really honored. My boy does school from home and he's doing a British curriculum, so it's done through Zoom. So I get to spend a lot of time with him. It's difficult, but it's great. Big love, blessings.
I remember
Thank you.
The young woman who did best when I was at secondary school, the young woman who got the best results when we were 16, she played truant for most of the last year of our schooling. She was studying at home under her own steam and did exceptionally well. And I've never forgotten that. That was a very interesting observation. Anyway, thanks again. Bye. Right.
Your mic's muted, Franklin.
I was just saying what a delightful lady to have on the show. Total honor having her on. We've been running almost 3 hours. Wowza. Talk about a little bit of Krauser. Who knows who realized how long that was running for. Do you have last ideas you want to throw on the table? I mean, we can always pick up this conversation next time as well. But it's been exciting. I think it's been on point because I think so much of this Pegasus seems to be focused on medical research of one kind or another, right? And interesting that a big part of it is like got to do with cyber warfare and information and psychological testing as well, like testing how we can get people to report on each other, which is interesting. It makes me think of 1984. It's the Orwellian story of George Orwell's 1984 book. A story that everybody should look at. Don't read it before you go to sleep, though, people, because It's not light reading. But what do you think? Do you have any last things you want to throw on the table, dear brother?
Yeah, I have a few last things to share. So one is that so this Pegasus scenario, exercise Pegasus mentioned meningitis. And it was between July and September of last year, and now there's been meningitis cases rolled out in the UK. What's interesting is that Pegasus represents wisdom and freedom, and at Kent University they were looking into 6G, and the project was called Wisdom. So there you have a little subtle link to exercise Pegasus and meningitis, the first cases appearing in club chemistry in Canterbury and Kent. Kent and 6G isn't mentioned anywhere in the media. It stayed under the radar. If you look into it, they were like one of the first places to do it. There was Professor Stephen Gale, who was the key figure. So in the field of antennas and propagation, Professor Gale was the only UK academic in the International 6G Expert Group, which consists of leading experts in 6G related technologies worldwide. He was the only one, and he was at the university in Kent. He left Kent in 2022. If you look online, it's very difficult to find any correlations between Kent and 6G because it's been kept out of the public eye. And you've got to wonder why. Why is it being kept out of the public? It's like they might have known that this thing would pop up in Kent. People would probably make the correlations of 6G, of this illness, brain swelling, rashes, people becoming unwell and stuff, which is what you get from radiation poisoning. So there's lots of interesting threads. I'm very disorganized just because it's hard to keep up with all of these threads. So I'm going to attempt to make a video, like a breakdown on exercise Pegasus, how it relates to this national blueprint for biodefense scenario they did in America, all the dates, how they link in, like just try and get to the essence of what things are. Just going to throw out some streams of awareness for people to look into, because there's lots of threads which all connect, which are very, very interesting. So I've been collecting lots of images to share, like statistics, graphs and stuff. So I'm going to make a video and, have a good old rant about this, what it kind of represents, while sharing things. What I always try to do is I try to keep it short, but I lose track of time because it's quite difficult to just hone in on one thing because it's all connected. So I go off on the stream, my light goes off on the stream, and then I try to orientate myself and bring it back to the topic at hand. And it's with all of this stuff, exercise Pegasus, it can't be spoken about in an hour. I know we've spoken about 3 hours chat today. We've kind of talked about it a little bit, but there's so many threads which I want people to see, and how COVID, Nipah virus, exercise Pegasus are all connected. So this week I'm going to do that, make another video, share some nice visuals for people to look at. And yeah, crazy times we're in. I knew that the year of the fire horse would go quick, and that sort of new structures and things would be brought into place. And there's just a lot going on. And I think what's really important to be aware of, and it was awesome that Simone joined us today, is because we are in a spiritual war. There's a war in the material. There's a war for our minds and our conscious awareness. And there's a battle in the unseen as well. Things that most don't even know is happening. And it's important to share this information, share all this stuff that's going on, because we need to arm ourselves. And the word armor is very similar to amor. Now, amor is love, and love is the best armor that we can have, because love is a frequency. So while we're being attacked by this frequency of fear, if we go back at them, or if we talk about or say to people, or if we're emitting fear back out there, that water is just going to get muddied, and it's just going to be a big old soup of fear. So what we need to do is sort of center ourselves in a place of love, find that vibration within ourselves, which all of the food and stuff, things in the air, it's hard to navigate into this vibration of love because we've been so disconnected and disorientated. So we need to try and find our inner light, orientate ourselves to that, and then come from a place of love, because that is the only weapon which is going to stop this fear frequency, which is the 666 of the fear frequency and fable. That there's always a frequency, there's always a fear, and there's always a fable that they tell us, always a narrative, always a story trying to capture our light, capture our essence. So this shield we can have is amor, is our armor to protect us. And this relates to the myth wheel, understanding my theology and how the myth wheel works, because that is the mithril. For any Lord of the Rings fans, Frodo wears the mithril armor, which is very light, and it stops him being attacked by a troll. Because to bridge awareness, to have a bridge between the seen and the unseen, you have to cross the bridge. But under the bridge is a troll, and we've been gaslit to not cross this bridge because of fear of the troll. So this gaslighting is extracting our Christos, is extracting our Christ consciousness, causing division in our awareness. So yeah, we need to recenter, reorientate, find our light within. Sounds very woo-woo, I know, but it's the truth. And yeah, find that frequency of love, the vibration of love inside all of us. Much love to everybody in the chat as usual, and yourself, Franklin, and Simone.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, brother, totally, man. And I think just a short response. Oh, Carly was asking a question, and let me flash it up here about the US. Now, as far as I know, in the US, the big stories in the US have been to do with the data centers, central in the US story. So the Pegasus project investigation, that has got to do with, I think, like 500,000 people's phones being hacked. So it's got to do with spyware. The Amnesty International is also connected. This is very, very much connected to the US with their relation to the Zionist regime, with the relation to the socioeconomic powerhouse which powers and supports the Zionist regime, all those huge super corporations. Most of the other things you're going to find, yeah, the Pegasus project is outlined in The Guardian as well. The Guardian is, generally speaking, one of the better newspapers around. Not that I approve of newspapers, but we've worked with the Guardian people before. So this is, once again, this focus on this Israeli. Probably the Guardian is probably the better thing to read regarding that information. If you want to look at like what the mainstream is having to say, because it's always useful to look at what the mainstream is saying and then backward engineer from that point. But yeah, so essentially the US Pegasus does relate to more of this. And then again, of course, there's the Pegasus project, which is an old project, dear Carly, which has got to do with children being used to create supernatural spies and develop extrasensory perception and learn to manipulate the time and space field to be able to jump into other realities and see the future and gain insights between the future and the past. So the Pegasus has been a big part of the US. It's probably why they're not pushing it so hard in the US, because they actually had top secret Pegasus project that was blown open. And I mean, I discovered it like decades ago, so it probably was going on for longer than that. So yeah, I mean, there is. And getting back to what you were saying a moment ago, Shinobi, I think the only solution is to be in a place of original thought. So we need to protect our guts. We need to protect the biome in our gut, because that way we will have stable mind. And when we have stable mind with a healthy gut biome, we will, as well as having a healthy immune system response to our external toxins and stimuli that they're trying to get us with, we would also have a good psychological immune system and response rate to the psychological attacks that we're being hit with from the media and all of these other agents, that they use, some of them being subliminal, some of them being liminal, as well as the neurolinguistics and the reshaping of the language and much of the occulted imagery that we're being subjected to. All of these agents do act upon our psychological, psychic self-defense field, and that is powered as well by the microbial systems and our organs and how healthy we are. So that's a key. And obviously maintaining a sense of equilibrium means not being very careful. And I want to point this out. There are a lot of researchers out there, and I've watched this happen. Rest in peace, someone I know. She's not alive anymore because she got too deeply involved in occult conspiracy theory information, right? And there are conspiracies, there are darkness, there are dark things happening, but we cannot allow ourselves to get obsessed with it. So you need to be balanced, you need to be in a state of harmony. What research you do with regards to the to what's going on in the world needs to be balanced with something else. So if you're researching that, then you need to research health. Research what you can do to improve your health. Research how you can improve your diet. Research how you can improve your psychological well-being. And then research something that's a hobby, something that you can practice, psychological tools, spiritual practices, mental practices, arts and crafts. You need to be balanced. And there are so many of these so-called truthers out there that are psychologically, mentally ill. Many people. You'll notice that within the community, oh, and by the way, you need to guard your psyche, right? So when you hear podcasters, for example, and they are ragging about a certain group of people that live in Israel, a religious group, and they're just spreading hate about those people, or spreading hate about black skin color people, or spreading hate about Chinese looking people, whatever, that is a psychological attack on your psyche. So garbage in, garbage out. That's the rule for computer systems. If our brains allow garbage in, it will stick in the back of our minds. If you watch racist content, you're more than likely going to become a racist on some level, because you'll start empathizing with that. So you got to be very clear in what you tolerate, clear in what you subject yourself to. If there are people that are overtly against the Jewish people, and I want to point something out here. Compassion is the key. Love is the key. We are stronger together than what we are separate. So we want to become integrated. We want to be in a state of unity. We do not want to be disassociated from each other. And disassociation is hatred. So what we need is compassion and love. And that is the most powerful force in the universe. And how we attain that is by understanding and having wisdom. So, for example, people don't realize this, but there were protests in Israel last year. I think it was September. Was it September? Something like that. And there were 10% of the entire Israeli population took to the streets. Now, when you break that down, between the ages of 18 and 50, that's 1 out of 4 people. I want you to just imagine 1 out of 4 people going to walk on the streets of adults, right? 18 to 50. Those are your general population of activists. So think about that for a moment, right? How many Jewish people are living in Israel and they are unhappy with the Zionist regime, but there's nothing they can do about it because that regime is like, it's like Mussolini, man. I lived in Israel for a while. I can tell you now that that government doesn't mess around. Protesters are not tolerated easily. You've got to be really careful. You can tangle the wrong way with the police or the IDF. You can get yourself into a lot of trouble. You can get your family into a lot of trouble. And basically, it's not a safe place to protest. For 1 out of 4 people to be protesting, it tells you about the general population that they are really not happy with what the Zionist government is doing. It would be like me blaming the British people for what the British government did in a war, right? Like, oh yeah, but the British made that rocket that became a cluster bomb that bombed the children in Palestine. So the British are responsible for... No, they're not. The British government is responsible for it and all the super rich corporations. The British people, they don't want to be a part of war. You can't blame the British people for what the governments in Britain do. You can't blame the Americans. You can't say, well, look at America. Americans are really bad people. They're really horrible people. Look what the American government has done. The American government caused the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan. They caused this war. They've caused other problems. They've basically... everywhere where they've gone, they've left pestilence, they've destroyed economies, and like that's just such a terrible group of people. No, the American people do not want to be part of a war engine. There's a very small group of people that own America and they do what they want, and the rest of the people do not really get representation, and that is the same for every country around the world. You cannot blame the American people for what the American government does. You cannot blame the Israeli people for what the Israeli government does. I'm sorry, we've got to keep it real, man. We've got to be sincere. We've got to be genuine. We must stop this anti-Semitic nonsense. It's taken the world by storm. There are so many TikTokers out there and YouTubers out there spewing their anti-Semitic crap. They've never even put a foot in Israel. Go and live in Israel. I lived there for almost 2 years, and go meet the people on the streets. Go meet the people in Israel, and you will see just about everybody you meet, they are not happy. They do not want what's happening to happen. They are trying to make a change, but they can't. You know why? Because they've got no representation. Do you have representation in your country? Can you make a change? Or are the 1% rich globalists controlling your country and doing with it what they want? That's the reality. You can't blame people for what this evil cabal is doing. But we do know that the evil cabal hides in religion. Understand that the Zionists know exactly what they do. They got the rule book from Frankists, who got the rule book from Sabbatai. And Sabbatai's modum operatus was very simple. You need to get into other religions. You need to hide in Judaism, hide in Christianity, hide in government, hide in the banking sector, hide in the education sector, hide in the legislative sector, get people in as judges and police, get into all of the important aspects that govern life and manipulate it from the inside out. And this is why we're living in such a corrupt world, because these Zionists are not just to do with Israel. They're a global organization. They're very powerful, and most of the 1% in the world are part of the Zionist clique. So now everybody goes and says, oh, it's the Jews, it's the Jews. Wake up and grow up. You're a part of the problem if you think that being a racist is going to be the solution to making the world a better place. You're not going to make the world a better place by just being a racist. What you want to do is you want to have sense. You want to understand who's in control. Why is this world this way? Taxes that would pay for missiles and bombs blowing up schools and hospitals. That's like one of the lyrics in like one of the tracks I just shared recently. And to understand who's behind this is to understand what exactly is going on. We need to take charge. We need to be conscious. We can't just be brainwashed. And I can think of a number of podcasters that are thriving. And what you see these people spewing is horrible. I've actually stopped associating with some of the people that I used to be friends with because of the racism. And I think a lot of people are fake. They can pretend not to be racist. They can pretend not to be this. They can pretend not to be that. But the moment they get a chance to show their true proclivities, it comes out. The moment they feel justified, well, finally, I've got a reason to publicly hate those people. I've always hated them. Now I can do it publicly. Watch out for those people. Watch out. They are toxic. They are a part of the problem. They are part of the counterintelligence movement. They are part of the psyops that is controlling us, that is putting us into this dilemma that we're in. We need to step out of this cesspit. We need to step into a place of love, compassion, harmony, peace, forgiveness. However, we need to hold the actual culprits responsible. We can't let them decide. The culprits tell you, oh, it's those people, it's that whole mass of people. Well, that's great. If you're stupid enough to believe that, then you're never going to see what's going on, because that's what they want you to think. That's what they want you to see. You want to look who's pulling the strings. Who are those? And there's not many of them. There's a small group. Our enemies are a small group of people. They're not a huge mass. It's not a nation. It's not a religion. It's not a big group. It's not the Islamic people. It's not the Jewish people. It's not the Christian people. It's a small group of people that control the churches, that control the corporations, that control the governments, that control all these powerful fraternities and organizations that basically put us where we are at in this moment. So that's my rant.
Before we go, can I just share something? Because Carly asked about something in America. Are there any projects you discussed in USA? Now, let me zoom in on this, if I can. Oh, I can't zoom in for some reason, so I hope people can see this. So if anyone wants to hear a deep dive into this, go check out the this podcast, Alchemical Tech Revolution, where Ray LaCroix is talking about this document, and he goes through it all. And basically this document here, the National Blueprint for Biodefense, written in May 2024, was about, it's basically Exercise Pegasus, but in the USA. So it mentions how biodefense needs to kind of be integrated, like with all this technology, and the reasoning behind it would be some kind of like chemical attack, which would happen on July the 4th in America. Now, July the 4th is Independence Day, which relates to freedom, and Pegasus is freedom. Pegasus is related to wisdom, messenger of the gods. Mercury, that's freedom, being able to travel between the seen and the unseen. So Pegasus represents freedom. And this document, when I was listening to him, I was like, wait, this sounds like Exercise Pegasus, but this was in America and this was before, but it's exactly the same blueprint, exactly the same. So if anyone wants to look into that, and Franklin, you mentioned compassion, and straight away I thought compassion, that is our moral compass ion, the compass of our ion. So this ship or vessel, which was like so orientation for me sounds like Ori enter the station. It's where our light kind of enters our train or vessel. So what I've written down here is that our ship, our vessel, which carries the light, the arc, our store of Ori, our store of light, which is contained inside the vessel, inside the ship. This ship can be blown off course by wind, which is the mind, which is AI, which is the artificial external. And lots of people's ships or vessels are blown off course. Some people say rabbit holes when they look into conspiracies. I prefer to use waterways because water carries information. So when I'm drifting, having conversations, talking, I travel on different waterways, but I try to find myself back like an anchor point, which is the orientation of which is the central point. But lots of people can be swept off by the tides of the water because they're being led by the wind, they're led by the mind, by the AI and artificial. So they've been blown off course and they've been caught in the current stream of the current scene of what's going on outside, pulled in all directions by the news, like stuff on social media, things people are sharing on Instagram these like AI videos where they're talking about absolute nonsense. So with an ark containing the light, an ark being a vessel or a ship, but an ark is also a story. And in a story, in a book, it contains words, which are the weirds, which is how we cast our fate. And that fate is what connects the past, present, and future. So this ark, this vessel, which is us, we're a container of light, we can be swept off course by this wind, by the mind. That's why there's lots going on to separate our heart-brain connection. Because if we're grounded with the heart, our mind can't be swept off. Our mind, our spirit can go to the unseen, to many different realms, but with the heart, it can ground us and bring us back to our center. So that's very, very important. Carly said, is that insinuating that technology can be used directly to attack biodefense? Well, really what they're talking about is the emergence of 6G and smart dust. We've been talking for over 3 hours, so we started wrapping up a while ago, so I don't really want to get too into it, but there's a lot of novel technologies emerging. Like this ties into transhumanism, which is after eugenics. Basically how everyone and everything will be encoded with this nanotech smart dust, and how this links into 6G, which has already been used to sort of track people on the NHS and see what's going on inside the body. And this goes deep. It's to do with your iris, your eyes, and your biometrics. They want to basically know everything that's going on inside the body. And this the iris scan, will be the way in which you enter shops and stuff in the future. In one timeline that's available, that's what they want to do. This is the window to the soul, and they want access to this. Via biometrics, they can access your soul, which is your DNA. This is Project Stargate. This is this whole AI. Peter Thiel funded JD Vance. Peter Thiel and Elon Musk were part of the PayPal mafia. Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Trump, they're all connected. These are all connected, and these scenarios are just seeing what they can get away with, and they'll try and pull some strings, do some things, do some dark wizardry, see what spells they can get away with. And if things go bad, they'll be like, oh, we weren't prepared enough, like the COVID inquiry, we didn't lock down hard enough. And then people will see what's going on, see the chaos, and beg for more order, a new world order, global governance. And because they're untethered, because they've been caught up in the mainstream with this artificial timeline, they'll want some orientation, so they'll follow the false light. This is why it's so important to find the black sun within, to have the central point, which is the unmovable mover, which is the anchor, which is when you tap into that place, you have no fear of death, no fear of all of this stuff they're doing. And then you're able to shine your light outside and become a warrior, speak up for what's going on, have no fear of whether you're going to be shut down, this and that, because the world needs more light, but it needs more realness, more real light, more insight, and more intuition, more people following their own inner guidance rather than following guides from outside, because people have been led astray and we've been led off course. So we need to start tapping inwards and start finding ourselves once again, because people need more individuals. They need more healers. They need more warriors. All the warriors and stuff we've got and healers we've got on the stage are people healing via like AI and artificial, saying you need to do this and that, sharing AI videos, and warriors like so-called warriors like Tommy Robinson saying, yeah, let's go to the street, on the streets, all of these immigrants and stuff. People have been led astray, and all of these people need to be called out. So yeah, that's my last little ramble.
And just to respond to what you say very briefly, because it ties into what I'm saying, I think you're completely right. I think the core integrity is how we defend ourselves, and being super, super real, being super authentic, being super genuine, and calling out the BS, right? Think about it like this. If we start protecting each other and we start looking out for each other, then who's going to be able to mess with us? So if you see anybody being bullied and you step in and you say, hey, what do you think you're doing, bullying? Other people see it, that's the norm. Before you know it, bullying will go away, because no one will be able to bully anyone, because if anyone tries to bully anyone, other people are going to step in and say, what do you think you're doing? This isn't on. And so bullying will just go away, because it just won't be possible. Now, there's a small group of people bullying the human race. They do this by creating dissension between us. They generate racist ideologies or ideologies of hatred, hating the rich because they got money. Not all people that have a bit of money because they've worked hard and they've been successful are necessarily evil or part of some evil plan. So we want to bring the human race back to that point where we look out for each other and we protect each other. So the next time you see people wanting to spread racist information, call them out. If it's on YouTube, if it's on TikTok, call them out. When other people see you calling them out, other people start calling them out. They'll be getting called out by everybody, and then they'll lose their viewership, because other people will see, oh, you know what, these people calling this guy out, they're right. And they'll lose their viewership. They shouldn't have viewership. The only reason they have viewership is because the AI likes the information that they give, and they will promote them. So if people are promoting these ideas, like you're saying, go out and beat up these people or those people. Look, there are problems in the UK. There are problems with certain people being brought there, but that's by design. It's a state problem, right? The state needs to be held accountable for what they're doing, right? If you go to a mental asylum and you take someone out of the mental asylum and you go and put him in an area by your home and he's like affecting your home, you got to find like, well, this person's a mental patient, so that they're not really well. Who put them there? Somebody was responsible. Oh no, their social worker told them to come and hang out there. Well, take their social worker to task. What the hell you think you're doing? You know, this person's not okay to be like running around near schools. And I think like this is the problem. Like rapists are running around on the streets. Why? Because they get let out of prison, right? People touch children, they go to prison for 6 months, a year. What is the good of that? Like, you shouldn't have to go running around the streets bashing in, like, you know, these nut cases. That if they get caught of a crime, they should be dealt with properly.
So Frank,
you steal from a bank, but you can do things to a child.
I saw a video of this march in London where they're all waving the St. George Cross flag. It's probably a Tommy Robinson march, I think. They were talking about grooming gangs and all of this, and how all these foreigners are dangerous for our young women. This girl got on stage, started talking and saying that she was groomed or trafficked by white British men. And this fat guy comes over and takes the mic off her. Oh, we're here to protect women, but only from brown people. So what sort of delusion is going on here, that then this young woman was trying to talk about how it's not just foreigners, it's not just brown people, it's white people, it's British men too, you know. There's some
associated with the Queen.
Well, yeah, there's some kind of cognitive virus, this mind virus in people, which is mad. It's crazy. People's brains seem to be infected with something, and you know, people are so lost. But then other people, it's like the blind leading the blind. Some people follow these people. And sometimes it just takes one person to speak out for somebody to actually be like, okay, I kind of see a different perspective now. Okay. Like so many people claiming to be awake because they understand what happened with COVID. but then they'll fall into the same pattern again. Because at its core, this is to do with patterns, repeating patterns and cycles. And that's to do with our DNA as well, like patterns and patterns of light and ways to control. And it's really bizarre. Like there's very clever people in the world. People think that the powers that be are stupid because they repeat the same things. But you've got to understand that there's lots of like people, corporations, the people pulling the strings understand how the human psyche works. And since the 70s, there's a pattern which was altering human brainwaves via radio signals. That was 56 years ago. You have Apple AirPods mapping the human brain. You know, people willingly give away their data because that's the new currency. And this is what it all comes down to, is the currency, and relating to the ship and the ark and the vessel and that which carries the light and our light inside, and us giving away our currency. We're giving away our light, giving away our information. We're giving away our soul, our identity, our core of what we are. When we fall into these traps, we lose a little piece of ourselves. So this is why it's so important to be grounded and to stay strong to what we are, because there's pack mentality in school. Children go into little groups because they don't want to be left out. The black sheep, or the one that speaks out, is always a scapegoat and told that, no, you're wrong. You ask too many questions. How dare you? You're affecting the group. You know, fuck the group. Like we're all here to be core souls, individual. We're all in one spirit, one mind, but we are individuals. We're not meant to follow the group. We're here to bring magic into matter from spirit, mind over matter. And it's our magic and our minds that have been weaponized so that we bring things into existence like AI, the artificial, this grayness. We're here to color this world. And people need to start remembering that, start tapping into the child, their imagination, the dreaming of what this realm can be, because we're creators. We bring things into this realm. That is magic, and it's our magic that's been weaponized, and they call it science.
Well, I think that's a brilliant point to leave the conversation. I think that's exactly what's happening.
We'll be talking all day otherwise.
Yeah, and you got to go fetch your boy, yeah? A little while.
Nah, Esme will be back soon with Bodhi. I need to collect Ori in a couple of hours, so
okay.
I might start making this deep dive into exercise Pegasus and trying to try and find some clarity in the situation.
Oh, why Callus 3970? Big love and big blessings to you. You're right, why Callus. It is a lot of nonsense that's being promoted on the web, and you got to watch out for the nonsense. Don't follow those people that are trying to push you down a line of dissension, because if you become separated from the herd, separated from the group, you're becoming separated from a part of yourself. If you have emotional complexes that aren't being dealt with, then we got to face our own shadow. We can't just point fingers at the whole group of people and say the whole race is just screwed up. Look how screwed up humanity is, because that's what they want. They want us to think population control is the solution. They want us to think there are too many people. They want us to think that the people need to be wiped off. That was one of their main aims, and it still is. But they can't do that because we've got too much love, man. Humanity, we're full of love. So keep the love, work the love, work with the love, and let the love work for you. Big love. Om Shanti. Take care, everybody. Don't forget to smile. Smiling is power. Share the power. Share the love. Till next time. Been an honor. Of course, as always, Shinobi and the lovely lady that joined us too. I hope she will join us again next time. Everybody take care. Take easy. Om Shanti.